Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the Tech Guy is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Networks on Sunday, January 18th, 2015. This is episode 1154. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send out all the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by FreshBooks, the simple cloud accounting solution that helps millions of entrepreneurs and small business owners save time billing and get paid faster. Join over 5 million users running their businesses with ease. Try it free at freshbooks.com/techguy. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Time to talk computers and the internet and home theater and digital photography and smartphones and everything with a chip in it. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the number. 888-827-5536. Toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Outside those two grand nations, you can just use Skype and reach us. It won't cost you anything. Skype out to 8888 Ask Leo. The website, techguylabs.com. techguylabs.com. We talked a little bit about it on the last show. David Cameron, Prime Minister of Great Britain, he's come to the United States to urge President Obama to lobby the big tech firms like Microsoft and Apple and Google to provide a backdoor for government snoops. The government snoops have been doing a pretty good job without it, but Cameron says it's, and he's using, of course, the terrorist attacks in Paris as his excuse. This is terrible. We can't let this happen again. So it should not be legal, he says, in the UK for anyone to use any form of electronic communications that the government can't read with a warrant. What he's really saying is you can't use encryption, because the encryption, and we talk about this a lot because I'm a fan of encryption. Encryption is the one way that you can keep your stuff on the internet private. With encryption, and you've used encryption. Did you see The Imitation Game? That's all about encryption. The new movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, nominated for an Academy Award 9 times, in fact. The somewhat fabricated story, but generally in the outlines of it, true story of how the Brits themselves during World War II were able to crack the German Enigma code without the Germans' knowledge and use it to perhaps, some say, win the war. It was certainly a very important discovery. Encryption is just, if you had a Captain Midnight decoder ring, that's encryption. It's somehow taking plain readable English or other language, text, and turning it into some scrambled thing that only the recipient can read. Now, since the days of Enigma, we've got much better at encryption. In Enigma times, during World War II, the Germans had to circulate a piece of paper to everybody who was to receive these codes via the wireless. The piece of paper had the code of the day. They changed it daily at midnight, the code of the day on it. So you would look up the date, and it would give you some settings for your Enigma machine. You'd make those setting changes, and then you'd be able to decode the message. Then the next day at midnight, it would change again. And that's kind of a little bit of a leak, isn't it? This piece of paper has to go out. If it's captured by the enemy, then they have what they need, the key. So you have to exchange keys. And same thing in the earliest days, in the Captain Midnight decoder ring days. You had to have the decoder ring that should decode the magic message from Captain Midnight over the radio. Actually, these kinds of ciphers were invented by, I believe, by the Romans. I think they used them. Julius Caesar would use them in his battles against the barbarians of the north. But they had to send 2 messengers, one with the key, the decoding key, and one with the message, and hope that neither were captured. If both are captured, they're in trouble. Either one, it's okay, but both are captured, they're in trouble. We've come up with a better, much better scheme that is widely in use called public key cryptography in the last few decades. Public key is so clever. And if you use encryption, whether it's for your email or your text messages, for your files, whether you're using Microsoft's BitLocker, Apple's File Vault, in every case you're using public key cryptography, strong cryptography. And the public key cryptography is so clever because it eliminates the need to exchange this secret key, which is, that's a flaw in the system. I gotta get a messenger there with a secret key along with another messenger with a message. That's a flaw. What if we didn't have to exchange secret keys? What if the secret key could be kept safe and secure and never released to the public? Well, that's how public key crypto works. There's two keys. There's one key is the public key that is used to encrypt, to scramble the message. The public key can't descramble it. So you can give out the public key. In fact, I do on my website, my personal site at leoville.com. I have a link to my public key. If you download that and install it in a key chain, you can send messages to me. You can encrypt messages to me that only I can read because only I have the private key. That's the second key. So there's two keys. A key which can be used to encrypt and a completely separate, unrelated key, which, well, it's somewhat related, I guess, which is used to decrypt. But you can't, having the public key, you can't figure out what the private key is, thanks to math. And that drives governments crazy. The math defeats them. They don't have a computer fast enough to decrypt the message. If they could get the private key, they could do it, but they can't get it because it's long. It's many bits. In most cases nowadays, as long as 2048 bits. Would take trillions of years with modern computer technology to decode it, to guess it with brute force. So the governments of the world aren't really thrilled about this because, well, of course, bad guys can use public key cryptography to exchange messages, and they don't like that. So the Prime Minister of England, David Cameron, says every crypto system sold in the United Kingdom, we're going to go for a law that says every crypto system sold in the United Kingdom has to have a backdoor. A second way of reading the message. Not the private key, but a second way of reading it. A separate key that only government has. Well, it'll be safe that way. Government will keep it safe. You can trust us. As many have pointed out, a system like this means essentially you've damaged the cryptography, that you've created a flaw in it that could at some point be exploited not only by law enforcement in a legitimate way, but by bad guys and voyeurs and snoops. And so when you break cryptography by forcing this, it's a big problem. There's also the issue of, well, frankly, it's almost impossible to stop people from using crypto. You could outlaw it. Bad guys aren't going to have any trouble getting it because there are many, 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 many open source cryptography solutions that the British government, the American government, the Chinese government, no government could shut down. And there are countries that have tried to do this, and they've universally failed. The cat's out of the bag. It's pretty easy to implement public key cryptography. It's not a sophisticated idea. And lots of written programs. There are many open source programs. I like GNU Privacy Guard, GPG. I use that to, that's that key that's on my webpage to decrypt and encrypt mail. So if you have PGP, which is the original commercial program, or GPG, which is the open source version, you can send me private email that only I can read because only I have the private key. Now, of course, law enforcement can come to my home and demand the private key, but there's no backdoor in this. We know because it's open source. We can see there's no backdoor in it. So very interesting proposal from David Cameron. And politically, I think, it plays to one audience, the audience that wants to stop terrorism, but it scares a lot of privacy advocates and technologists who understand how difficult, nay, impossible this would be to do. I'm going to watch with interest. I've had some email conversations with Brits who are very concerned about this, and my feeling is this was playing to the theater, but there's no way that he could seriously be proposing this. It would cut off Great Britain from the rest of the world necessarily. They'd have to sift through every bit of internet traffic, electronic traffic, every disk, every USB key, anything coming into the United Kingdom, they'd have to stop at the gates and look at. If you had an iPhone, you'd have to check it at the door. You'd have to get it at Heathrow, and Heathrow would say, "Give your iPhone, please," because the iPhone has built-in strong encryption in its messages program. Government can't crack it. Check your iPhone at the door, and then you can come into the UK. 8888 Ask Leo. We could talk about that. We could talk about anything you have going on in your tech life. Give me a ring. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I think it's electioneering. Remember, he has this right-wing UK IP, the United Kingdom Independent Party, that he's running against, and he has to look strong. But there's no way they could do this. And for him to come to President Obama and say, "Hey, could you get Microsoft to disable their encryption?" Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But meanwhile, if I were you, I'd download a copy of GPG. Just keep it around while you can, especially if you're in the UK. Really, all this is doing is making sure that the techies in the UK are quickly running out and getting a copy of that crypto. Quick, before it's too late. Hello, Heather Hammond.
Hey, let's hear from you today, UK.
Hey, UK. Oh, that's Chris Marquardt.
I got it. What's going on with that shirt?
Wow, is this wild? Look at it from the back.
Who paid you to wear it? Lisa didn't let you.
This is
it is a Transformer
this is
type
like
thing.
a Gundam or something. Yeah, some sort of Japanese character.
I was in the kitchen and I looked up at the monitor making my twit latte, and I was like, "What?"
My twit latte.
Hell?
Does it look weird with the bald head? I look like a crazed golfer.
Period. Are you kidding? It's like a little boy's sheets or whatever. Like,
yeah, it is like little boy's sheets. This is actually made of little boy's sheets.
And then there's some underoos or some pajamas to match.
No, MeUndies beneath.
On the race car bed.
Yep. I like my race car bed. Don't knock it.
It's fun.
I pretend I'm in NASCAR. I'm
slow.
Jeff Gordon driving around the track.
Oh, my God. Hey, I saw one of your favorite bands. I think they were one of your favorite bands. Foreverland. Was at Bimbo's last night.
Foreverland.
Michael Jackson cover band.
Oh, yeah, we saw them. They were good. Did you see them?
Yeah, I think they...
Did they have Michael Jackson swimming in the tank naked?
No.
No.
Not tonight. Last night.
No, they're good. They're quite a enthusiastic group.
Oh, man. It was unhinged and sold out. You know, middle of January, you're kind of like, meh, people are whatever. But it was very good, and I know that you quibbled with, like, the song they ended with the last time you saw
them. They did
them.
Thriller.
Was it Ben? Oh, they did end with Thriller.
Yeah. Well, you're right. They might have done Ben at the end of Thriller. They did. They should have stopped with Thriller because they do a great Thriller.
But they played out the...
I think you're right. I think they ended with Ben.
Room with something really...
Like, Ben, the two of us having...
Something that was sort of a...
Ben is such a bad song.
After that.
You know, I think people have widely forgotten that Michael Jackson recorded that song. Well, it was for a movie about a boy and his mouse, a rat.
Right.
It was a rat?
But, yeah, no. So they did
movie.
their killer Thriller thing last night, and...
The Thriller is very good because they do the...
They're such good dancers. It's a whole stage show without being too slick in Broadway.
Yes. Very not slick is not the word I would use. But fun. You have fun with it.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Foreverland.
Sure I sweated off at least a pound.
Yeah. Do. Doop, doop, doop. Somebody on Twitter is saying, isn't it possible, given the government's abhorrence of strong encryption, that it was the feds of one country or another that encouraged the TrueCrypt people to shut down? And that's what I always thought. It seems so sudden. But we'll never know. Steve thinks they just got burnt out on doing open source software. It wasn't really open source, but, you know, for whatever reason, they abandoned it quite quickly. Could have been the mafia. We don't know. Here we go. Let's get some calls. I fought the law and the law won. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We'll send that song over. Actually, isn't that the Clash? It's some UK group doing that, or is it? Yeah, it's the old Bobby Fuller song. So Britain already has a copy. Thank you. 8888 Ask Leo. That's my number. The Tech Guy Labs website, techguylabs.com. Always your resource for reference. If you hear me talking about something, we put it up there. Thanks to James DeRuvo. Hello, James. Scribbling, writing as I talk. And he puts all the links up there. And then we get the audio and the video after the fact. And you know what's cool about this? A lot of radio shows nowadays, they charge for the website. No. I'm a believer in the free and open web. We give it away. And by the way, the website was no inexpensive thing to do. That's expensive, doing a website. We're doing a new website for the podcast network right now. And I feel like I'm building a bridge. This is so expensive. Yikes. This week, Microsoft, about 4 days from now, actually, is going to announce the consumer edition of Windows 10. We'll get they'll take the wraps off the next version of Windows. Probably won't be out till the fall, but we'll learn more about that. It's on Wednesday. They're having a briefing. There's a public stream you can watch starting at 9 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday the 21st. Probably not sure what the website would be, but if you go to Microsoft.com, I think they'll. That's the thing to do now, isn't it? Maybe it's just my crowd. Probably, real people don't do this. But but come to think of it, but now a lot of the tech companies, even Apple, when they have one of these events, mostly intended for the press, announcing new products. Apple announces the new iPhones in September, the new iPads in October, and there's coming up in a couple of months, March, the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Samsung will have an event with singing and dancing, announcing the new, Galaxy and whatever, probably the Note. I guess maybe the S6, probably their new phone. HTC. Everybody does this now, and that really isn't. It's a press conference, but they jazz it up with singing and dancing sometimes, or just great showmanship like Steve Jobs did with these great Apple keynotes. And among my crowd, among the geeks, we watch these it's like watching the Academy Awards. Did you know that we do that? No, I'm looking at Heather because she's not one of us. I mean, she's one of us, but she's not one of us. I am not kidding. Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, I will be sitting in front of the screen. In fact, we even do a broadcast of the broadcast. So Mike Elgin, our news director, we have the podcast network has a news director, and I and others will sit around and we'll show the Microsoft thing and we'll comment on it like it's a sporting event, like it's the World Cup. I
will watch you watch.
Yeah, it's fun. There's a guy who works at Microsoft named Joe Belfiore. He'll probably do the demo. He's got a Beatles haircut. And part of the fun of this is seeing what his hair looks like. I just realized that this, which is completely commonplace and like part of my life and has been for years, probably seems odd to normal people. We watch these things on the internet stream, and we look upset. Oh, what's new? Oh my goodness, look at that menu! Wow, they've really dressed that up. Oh, tell me you're gonna have translucent menu bars. Come on, please. Come on. People even make keynote bingo sheets. You've probably done this or seen it in the Academy Awards. That's coming up. And as you go over to an Academy Awards party, they'll make a grid with a best actor, best picture, all that stuff, and then you check and then they at the end of the day they have a kitty or whatever. You win a little prize for getting the most right. You've done that, have you? It's fun. Well, for these we have keynote bingo, and websites will do this. They'll make a bingo card with all the things that Microsoft might, could, or would say. One of them will be Joe Belfiore's hair. And then you just check these off. There's no prize. Oh, look. Oh, did they say the word amazing? That's easy on Apple's keynotes. Awesome, amazing. The best iPad we've ever made. You see, you could check that off every time. Because why would you make a worse one? The thinnest iPad we've ever made. Check that off. 8888 Ask Leo. Heather Hammond, Phone Ranger. She's one of us. but not one of us. You know what I mean,
accepted.
Right? You're part of the human race, but you're not one of the weird geek people.
And I'm a twit person.
Yes, you are.
But I'm more kind of looking over your shoulder and going, okay, that's cool. I don't understand that.
The radio audience, Twit is the podcast network, This Week in Tech. So I decided, foolish me, why should I only work 2 days a week when I could be working 7 days a week? So I started a podcast network so that I'd keep myself busy during the week. That was a dumb idea.
Oh, you do what you love.
I do enjoy it.
I mean, if I could 7 days a week.
Yeah, I do enjoy it.
If that was a job.
7 days a week. Sometimes
Or
8.
8.
Yep. Who should I talk to on this? Because you've lined up I can see a great bunch of people here.
I have.
Yeah.
And Frank in L.A. has a Microsoft question for you.
Frank in L.A. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thank you, Heather. Hi, Frank.
Hello, sir. Pleasure speaking with you.
Pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Even though I like to call myself semi-computer literate, I've been working with computers since I was in grade school.
That's pretty good.
I got a Dell computer with Windows 8 about a year ago.
Yep.
And I thought I would become accustomed to it over time, but it's just so annoying. I don't like the icon.
I've grown accustomed to your start menu, the way the icons go out and in. I was serenely independent and happy with Windows 7.
Right.
Then along came Windows 8, and now it's you I hate. You're not alone. Windows 8 was a big departure for Microsoft, and a lot of people have kind of said, what? Most people get used to it eventually, and there are things you can do to make it more like Windows 7. I presume that Windows 7 is kind of your dream girl.
Yes, XP and then 7 too.
Yeah.
Is what I basically really liked.
So you can, for instance, the folks at StarDock, who do all sorts of interesting Windows extensions, have done two things. By the way, they will be unnecessary in Windows 10 because Microsoft hears you, and they're saying, oh, maybe we pushed too far too fast with Windows 8 and 8.1. 8.1 fixed some of this stuff, by the way. And now Windows 10, they're going to skip 9 entirely because they really want you to know, no, this is really different. Windows 10 will bring back the Start menu, for instance. You'll be able to boot into, well, even with Windows 8.1 now, you can boot to the desktop. You don't ever have to see that. I think what you don't like, I would guess, is that full screen, big button, Start screen, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you can bring back the Start menu for $5. They have StarDock has a program I love called Start X, I think. Let's take a break. I'll come back and tell you about a few others that can do this too. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We'll put in the classic shell. Windows Forever says, I see no reason for this Windows bashing. Actually, I have to say, I have gotten used to Windows 8. In fact, I just ordered a new Dell, the new 13-inch XPS with Windows 8. But it is a cautionary tale because if you created a giant, and Windows is giant, it's more than 150 million users, giant user base of people who are used to doing things a certain way, you change it at your peril. And even if it's only 10% of the people who bought Windows 8, that's millions and millions of people. How many did they sell so far, Windows 8? I think it's got to be nearing 100 million. So 10 million people are going just like, Frank, I don't like it. Eventually, Stockholm Syndrome sets in, and you like it because you go, well, this is it. I got to live with it. I still find, I find myself, we're almost 2 years in now, trying to do something in Windows 8 and going, I cannot figure out how to. And there's things that are crazy. Like there's two control panels that are vastly different. And I still I'm not really sure which one I'm going to get when I open a control panel. There's two versions of Internet Explorer, which are vastly different. And, there should be one. That's just a good rule of thumb. Don't confuse your user. So we'll put in, write these down, James, if you would, all the different ways of, changing the start menu 8. What is this start? I should go look at Stardock, because they have the modern mix or something like that, which takes the full screen Metro apps. So Metro is the thing that people I think most hate, but takes the full screen Metro apps and makes them Windows, which Windows 10 does, maybe even 8.1. They have some silly things too. I don't really see any reason to add drop shadows to Windows 8, but okay. There's Modern Mix, Start 8. So those are the two I'd recommend. Those are each $5. They're not expensive. And there are free solutions. I tried Classic Shell. I don't know. I felt like it was worth $5 to get Start 8. Fences, I don't care about. Object Dock, I don't care about. Window blinds. I've tried all these. You can really kill a Windows machine by putting all this crap on there. So put as little as you can, in my opinion. And I really think that you're going to get 90% of the way towards making it look like Windows 7 with Start 8 and Modern Mix. Who needs shadows? With Windows 8.1 now, you can have a desktop that looks like the start menu screen will have the same background as your desktop. That makes it a little bit, oddly enough, a little bit less annoying. Let me ask you, Windows Forever, you're saying it has HD audio, but you have to have a DAC that supports it as well, don't you? Hardware DAC has to. So I think when they say that, what they're saying is, if you have the appropriate hardware, our software will be able to play back those high-res files. But you still need a digital to analog converter, or DAC, would be your sound card, that can do it. For instance, the Apple DAC cannot, but a lot of third-party DACs can. External DACs. Our show today, I love it, brought to you by something kind of different, kind of unusual, but kind of cool. It's called Blue Apron. You've heard us talk about this, right? So Blue Apron is for people who have good taste in food. They love good food, and they maybe even like to cook, but they don't know what to cook, or more importantly, for busy people, they don't have time to shop. So Blue Apron does the shopping and meal planning for you. Here's how it works. With Blue Apron, you get a box in the mail with all the ingredients for a delicious recipe. BLUEAPRON.com/twit is the website if you want to follow along with me. In fact, we've got a special deal for you. I'll tell you about in a second. The ingredients are fresh. Even the meats and the fish, they're all fresh. They come in refrigerated, recyclable boxes. They come weekly. Delivery is free. Costs about $9.99 per person per meal. They have the 2-pack, which is for 2 meals. And they have a family pack if you want more meals. These are designed by really good chefs. So they're kind of amazing recipes, which you'll probably want to cook again and again. And that's nice because they give you a coded stock card with the recipe on it, full-size card. And it has pictures and instructions. So even if you've never cooked before, it's kind of like going to cooking school. In fact, that's why they call it Blue Apron. That's the apron the apprentices at the Cordon Bleu cooking school in France wear. They're apprentices. They wear blue aprons. The first time you cook it, it might be a little challenging, but then you'll know how to do it, and you'll be able to cook it again and again. But don't worry, because Blue Apron will never send you the same recipe twice, which is great. Cooking always takes about half an hour. So you get home from work, 5:30, 6. You've got your box. You've got all the ingredients, even down to the salt and pepper that you need to make a recipe. Half an hour later, you're eating. And this will impress people like there's no tomorrow. You're going to love Blue Apron. The ingredients are fresh from local farms, so you're getting produce that's currently in season. Meals range around 500 to 700 calories. Of course, you could supplement them, but they're very healthy, very delicious. They will work around your schedule, of course, and your dietary preferences. Blue Apron. Try Tex-Mex beef and quinoa casserole, or with black beans and Monterey Jack cheese, or roasted heirloom root vegetable salad with radicchio, hazelnuts, cara oranges, and shallots. Oh, man. I mean, this is good stuff. See what's on the menu this week at blueapron.com/twit. Get your 2 meals free. First 2 meals free. blueapron.com/twit. And we thank them so much for supporting the Tech Guy podcast. This is such a good idea. We love it. We love it. We do it all the time. blueapron.com/twit. Better than eating out. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. We're talking with Frank, who doesn't like Windows 8. You got 8.1, I presume, Frank, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. You had to do all your Windows 8 updates, and then you go to the App Store, which is something interesting, all in of itself, and there it would say, oh, good, now that you have all the updates, you can install Windows 8.1. So it's like installing an app from the App Store, but instead it's an update to the operating system. That makes it a little bit better. And then I was mentioning there are some free programs that'll give you a start menu. I mentioned Starduck's Start 8. They also have a program called Modern Mix that will take those full-screen windows and make them normal windows. See, what happened here, I think, is Microsoft recognized that and they were wrong, by the way, but a couple of 3 years ago, they said, whew, look at this iPad sales. They're going to kill PCs. We've got to make Windows tablet-friendly. And, so you're taking a classic desktop operating system that is made for a monitor, a desktop keyboard, a mouse, and works okay on laptops. But then now you're making it so you could touch it. So they have to have big buttons for them. Get rid of that start menu. You can't tap that with your thumb. You need big buttons. And you need stuff sliding in and out. And on a tablet, you do want, that's what the iPad does. Apps take over the screen. But the problem is there are plenty of people still using it like the old operatings. Like you, I bet. You probably use it on a desktop or laptop.
Right, on a laptop. And I don't mind using icons on an iPhone. I love that. But when I'm on a laptop...
Isn't that funny?
With a PC laptop, I want
a PC.
Right.
Isn't that funny? It's true. And I think that's something they maybe didn't understand is you don't have the most successful operating history in the history of humankind and then just kind of randomly change it. People are going to freak out. You've got hundreds of millions of users who say, what'd you do? It's like New Coke. Coca-Cola made this, did this. They changed the formula for Coke, and people went, I like the old Coke. So Coke does what I think Microsoft's going to do, which is offer both, really, in effect. And Windows 10, I think, will make it very easy for you to make it look like Windows 7.
So how would I do that once Windows 10 comes out?
You'll just install it. Microsoft has already said if you're running Windows 8, Windows 10 will not only run on the existing hardware, it'll install on top of Windows 8 seamlessly and easily. That is probably the case. That's what they've been able to do the last few versions. But that means you're waiting until the fall. So in the meantime, if you want to make it look more like Windows 7, there are programs that will do that.
Once that Windows 10 comes, would it be an update?
Yes. Whether it'll be a paid update is a question. But it will be. You won't have to erase your hard drive. You'll be able to update. It won't be pushed out as a Windows update, but it will be something you can put the disk. We think, put the disk in or download the file and install on top of Windows 8.1. That's all to be determined because it's 9 months off. But that's what we think. We'll find out more on Wednesday. I think this is going to be interesting. The other thing Microsoft did that people can get used to, but is very confusing, because they wanted to go to a tablet. They've hidden menus like. On the tablet, so there's a lot of stuff that's in something called a charm bar, which is this brand new kind of bar on the right-hand side, but it's not visible. It's invisible. It has search in it. That's how you turn your computer off. You shut it down, you restart it, you log out. All the things, settings, all the things that you do a lot are hidden on the right-hand side of the screen. And on a tablet, it's, you swipe your finger in from the right side of the screen, the charm bar pops up, and then you can pick then they're big icons. You can pick it. But if you're using a mouse and keyboard, you have to move your mouse exactly to the lower right-hand corner and wait a half a second. And then it kind of slides out. It's just weird. Or you have to know to press the Windows key and the C key at the same time. Windows C will open the charms bar as well. And so all of these things just are disconcerting. There's 2 different versions of Internet Explorer. There is the full-screen new version, they call it the modern UI version, and the old-fashioned desktop version. And they're not the same. The desktop version has the address bar at the top of the screen. The modern version is at the bottom. Why do that? What are you doing? Well, it's for tablets, but I'm not using a tablet. So over time, people discover the charm bar and they get used to having to move the mouse there. They kind of get used to these things. But you shouldn't have to, I think. I think Microsoft really kind of jumped the shark. Is that the term on this one? But we'll see what they do with Windows 10. You know, the truth is what's happening is operating systems are getting less important, frankly. The new CEO at Microsoft knows this. He's inherited a lot of this stuff from his predecessor and is moving Microsoft into an interesting new position as a kind of almost a cloud service provider. They're saying, run our software, use our devices on any system, on Android, on iOS. They released the touch version of Microsoft Office, their premier software package, on iPads first. Now it's coming out on Android. It's still not out for Windows. So that's a new Microsoft with a new idea, which is fascinating for tech journalists. We love it because, hey, there's something to talk about. Not so happy for businesses who are just trying to get some work done. I just want to launch my spreadsheet. Don, in Sherwood Forest. No, I wish it were. It's actually Sherwood Park, Alberta. They should rename it, Don.
Yeah, they should.
Then you could be Robin Hood. Hi, Don. Welcome.
Well, that's all the themes they use here is Robin Hood themes around here.
Oh, see? See, they know. They're no fools.
Sherwood Park is beside Edmonton, Alberta, which is way, 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 way up north.
You're on the Great Plains.
Yes.
Where the winds blow and men are men.
Yeah. Well, it's not too cold here today. It's just around 0. Or no, 32 for you guys. 0 for me.
That's warm. That's balmy.
It is. Yeah. It could have been 30 below. So.
It's shirt sleeve weather.
Yep. The reason I'm calling today is, by the way, I watch your show. I got the live feed. It's going in my office generally all day while I'm working.
That I love. Thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate that.
Everything is, I watch all the shows on and off all day. So, love your show, and in fact, that's why I'm calling today.
I'm kissing you now, Don. Thank you.
The problem is, I'm running a laptop here with Windows 7 on it.
Yeah.
I ran a virus checker. Avast was running the free version of Avast.
Mm-hmm.
It found a dropper gen virus, which affected Explorer.exe, the executable that shows the desktop.
If you think about it, that's okay. Go ahead. We'll talk about it.
It's pretty critical.
Yeah.
To have a desktop.
It's a Trojan. You got a nasty one.
Yeah. So then I ran something to kill it. It wouldn't kill it. Went to another company. Starts with a K. They're an internet virus removal tool.
Kaspersky.
Yes.
Kaspersky.
And I ran that.
Yeah.
It found nothing.
Yeah, only Avast finds dropper gen.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That's an odd thing. So let me tell you a little bit what a dropper is, because that's a very scary term when you're talking about viruses. A dropper is a package that you get on the machine somehow by a malicious website or malicious software or USB key, whatever, and then it does the dirty work. It gets the rest of the malware. So droppers by themselves don't do anything except bring more malware in. So if you do have a true dropper, if it's not just an Avast thing, then you've got a problem. Now, it's interesting. Kaspersky is one of my favorites, and they're very good. But you did the web-based version of their scan, right?
Oh, I downloaded the virus
you did?
From them.
All right.
Because, of course, what I'm doing is using Task Manager to open up and then using the file run. So then I can...
Let me give you one more opinion. It's always good to get multiple opinions if you hear that there's a virus. You don't want to install 2 antiviruses. That can cause problems. But I want you to try the malicious software removal tool. Microsoft puts this on all up-to-date copies of Windows, and it's available to you. And I'm going to tell you how you can get it when we come back from the break. What a tease, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I've told you before how much I love my Epson work. Hello, Johnny.
Leo,
yes, Johnny.
would you be hungry enough to...
I'm starving. I didn't have breakfast, Johnny.
Okay, then tell me what you would like.
I had a handful of almonds and a tangerine. Actually, that's kind of a pretty good breakfast.
Tangerine at the market?
That's a pretty good breakfast, but that's not what I want for lunch.
Okay.
I should have something healthful. You know what? Get me the turkey, lettuce, tomato sandwich.
Cheese, Dutch Crunch.
Dutch Crunch, yes.
Can do.
That would be delicious. I'll just take the top off.
It is. I like turkey.
Yeah, turkey. Lots of turkey.
And it's healthy because you're not getting cheese.
Yeah, that makes it okay. But can you put lots of mayonnaise on it? Thank you, John.
And mustard.
No mustard, just mayo. Thank you. It does sound like a false positive, I have to say, if another antivirus doesn't see it. One of the problems with putting multiple antiviruses on there, sometimes one antivirus sees a signature file from another as virus. Dropper Gen program is a remote application program hiding in the form of generated text. So probably he got it on there. One indication a system is infected with Dropper Gen Trojan is a sudden decrease in the speed of internet browsing. Oh, that's nice. The Dropper Gen Trojan comes bundled with generated texts. I don't know what that is, with some freeware programs. May also be installed through some malicious programs. See, that's one of the issues here, is these freeware downloads from CNET and Softpedia and other places. Sad to say, from Oracle as well, when you download Java. They install additional stuff. This is a site called Pareto Logic. Let me see if I can. Specific detection named by Avast to recognize harmful programs that aim to drop other malware files on the compromised computer. Yeah, it's a dropper. But, you know, it's interesting because they may call, what they may be calling the dropper may be the wrapper around the shareware that you download. If you went to CNET, for instance, download.com, and you downloaded a file, what they do is they download, instead of the file, a downloader, which is a wrapper, and that then tries to download all sorts of junky stuff. And it could be that that's what Avast is calling a dropper. There's a website. Who did this? Was it Ars Technica? Somebody did. Download.com malware. They did like the... Oh, I want to find this article. It was a great article. They downloaded the top 10 programs or something from download.com and noted how... They did it in a virtual machine, fortunately, because they noted how screwed up their system got. I want to find that article. Anybody remember where that is? Oh, yeah. Thank you. How to Geek. That's right. All right. Thank you. I would like to mention that. We'll put that in the show notes because I have a feeling that's where we're going with this call. This was horrific. Just they tried to install Avast, AVG, KM Player, Yak, CCleaner, and it's just the amount of junk they got. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. We're talking to Don in Sherwood Park. He's in Alberta, Canada. Hey, Don.
Hi.
He has his antivirus, Avast, detected something called Dropper Gen as a malware program. He then ran Kaspersky's free antivirus download, and it detected nothing, which is interesting. You can also try Microsoft's own malware removal tool. I started talking about that before we had to break. It's easy to run. You have it. In fact, Microsoft updates it every Patch Tuesday. So you have a fairly up-to-date version if you've been running your updates, which you should be. And all you have to do is click Start Run and then MRT. That's it. Once you hit Return on that, it'll actually launch a Windows window and everything. It's a normal app. I don't know why Microsoft doesn't give you an icon for it, but they don't in the menu. So Start Run MRT. That's also that's pretty. It's not an antivirus, but like the Kaspersky, it looks for known malware and removes it. Not bad to get a second opinion. Here's my guess.
Nope. Tried to run MRT.
No?
Won't work.
It said no such thing?
Well, I have to do from file through the Windows Task Manager, file run. So I typed in MRT.
And what version of Windows are you using?
7.
Windows key R, MRT. You could try that.
Windows key R.
Yeah, that's the run command from the keyboard.
Yep.
Okay. So do a thorough scan. If that comes up negative as well, you probably can assume that Avast is identifying something on your system as a virus that others don't consider a virus. And here's what I would guess it is. Do you ever download shareware from, say, download.com or Softpedia?
I may have done that for something to do with a camera.
Recently.
Finding the GPS code in a camera.
Yeah. Shareware is great. My strong suggestion is not to download it from those download library sites, like the worst is download.com, which is ironically run by CNET, which is ironically owned by CBS, the Tiffany network. But for some reason, I guess this is their monetization strategy. I'm going to point you to an article we'll put in the show notes at techguylabs.com from How To Geek. Here's what happens when you install the top 10 apps on download.com. Now, this is supposedly a site that scans these for malware and, offers them up in an easy-to-search library. A lot of people use this. And if you read this article, you'll be horrified. It installs a ton of adware and garbage, and it does it by first installing. It doesn't install the app you request. It installs a downloader that then installs the app. The downloader is like a dropper. It then puts other stuff on your system, really nasty stuff. And now they get away with it because they say, well, no, read the fine print. You accepted it. And this is the problem. Even Oracle does this when you download Java. They give you a little checkbox. Would you like the Ask toolbar? You got to look at these very carefully, or better yet, get Avast from avast.com, not from CNET's download.com. The junk they install. Now, some of this may be seen as droppers by Avast because, this installer is a dropper in a way. It's going to install junk. And it may be, remember, because the company is so well regarded. And I'm on a campaign to change that. But because CNET is so well regarded and download.com is, and because they kind of technically stick to the rules of, one, asking you, hey, we asked you, we put it in the fine print. And two, giving you an uninstaller. So if you go to programs and features in your control panel, you should see uninstallers for the junk it installs. Sort by date and just delete everything, that you don't, that's like, what, hey, where'd the conduit ad program come from? What's this? Uninstall, uninstall, uninstall. My experience is it's very difficult to get rid of it. If you have a teenager in the house, and you know how kids are, they want to play games, they download free software, and they often get it from sites like these. And that's, I'll tell you, the worst thing ever. The teenage, and I have one in the house, and the teenage computer. So what I did, and this is something I recommend everybody do, is once this happened once, and I cleaned it as best I could, and I think I did a pretty good job. I created a new profile for him that was a limited user or a standard user in some versions of Windows, not an administrator. And I said, look, from now on, kid, you want to install something, you're going to have to ask me. And I'm going to have to type the administrator password and do all that. That keeps malware from installing itself, too, behind the scenes. And then I'm very careful when I install stuff to get it, primarily get it from the original company. Make sure the original company's legit. And whatever you do, don't use these downloading sites. And download.com is the worst. Even though they say, we scan for malware. Oh, no, it's safe. But we're going to install a few things that'll make your life better. Like adware. Anyway, I don't know if Avast found something legitimately bad or found, my guess is it found the adware installer. That's what it's calling a malware. Because most companies won't call it malware. They don't want CNET to sue them or CBS to sue them. It's not malware. You see, right there. See that little tiny check mark? They said they wanted it. And by the way, we can uninstall it. Malware doesn't let you uninstall itself. This isn't malware. This is a convenience for the user. It's a convenience for the user. How could you say it's malware, Leo? So, and in fact, a lot of antiviruses won't. Well, technically, it's adware, not malware. In my opinion, here's what I mean when I say malware. If somebody installs something on your computer you didn't want, you don't know about, without your permit, without your really explicit permission, sneaks it onto your computer, and then it does things like slow down your browsing experience, change your search engine, change your homepage. That's malware, dude. Nobody should be able to get their claws into my system and change things like that without my permission. That's terrible. There are good programs for software for virus removal. Kaspersky's one. ESET, I like a lot, ESET. You might try theirs as well. Don't install multiple antiviruses. That's a bad idea because one antivirus can see the virus signatures from another antivirus as a virus. So you get lots of false positives. Like, I see a virus. No, that's not a virus. That's the other. You should only have one antivirus program. But the loophole there is you can download and use as many as you want for the removal tools because they're not scanning, you know, your system all the time. And they're frankly even more useful. Somebody said it's not MRT anymore, and I don't know about this. It's still MRT on my system, but I'm using Windows 7. Somebody said it's now MSERT. Is that right? MSERT. All right. Well, he was able to use MRT because he's on Windows 7. The ESET removal tool, as they're telling me in the chat room, is great because it removes itself when it's done. That's what you want. That's what you want. 8888 Ask Leo. My other advice, by the way, is when you first install Windows, this is a good thing. And you know what, Don? The only way to really be sure you got rid of this, I don't think this is a big problem, but if you really get an infection, is to wipe the drive. I didn't do this with the kid because it's a pain, but wipe the drive and reinstall Windows. Start over. That's the only way to for sure get rid of everything. And if you do that, or you're installing a new system, or when my new Dell comes, image the drive. As you know, and there are lots of programs that'll do this. Drive Snapshot is one. Windows Imager, or is it Drive Imager? There's another. We'll put a link. We do this all the time. I'll have a link for you in the show notes at techguylabs.com. Image the drive. That means make a file that is the drive freeze-dried with everything, so that and then put that somewhere safe on a USB key or somewhere, so that if you do get a virus next time, you can blast it all in. In fact, I do several images. I do the computer as it first came. That's basically a recovery disk, right? But then I install my stuff. I configure it. I get the updates. I just make it just right. I make it feel just real good. All the stuff I want, customize it. Put my Leo wallpaper on it. Then I image it again because that's like a quick reinstall. Get it back to that state. The problem with subsequent images is, you know, they may not be pure. You may be imaging something that has, as you've used it, become a little corrupted. So it's nice to have those pure images right at the beginning and reuse them. And one thing you could do, I guess, if there's been a lot of Windows updates, is to this is crazy, but I have to admit I do it sometimes. Restore the, Leo customized, the nice image that you'd like. I know that's going to take you back in time. Make sure you back up your data and everything because this will wipe your drive. And then update it. So now you have a known good system because you haven't. Goes back in time to when you hadn't done anything, and then make an image of that, and that'll kind of get you up to date. Also, one more thing, Ninite, NINITE.com. If you do want to install a lot of apps and you want to get it from the original source, that's a great way to do it. Ninite. We'll put that in the show notes. TechGuyLabs.com. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Ninite. Oh, you're a good man. You're a good man. Good, good, good. Delicious. Thank you so much, Johnny. I really appreciate it.
Before how much I love my Epson Workforce printers. Well, I've traded them all.
There is a program that for this purpose that unclicks. What is it called? Unclick Me or something? Thank you, James. I got my 1520 back fired up because I want denim. Giant phone. Windows phone. This isn't the one that I broke. This is one that Microsoft sent me in replacement for it. Oh, can't show you that. I don't think it would matter if you saw my password. Waiting for denim. Let's see if denim's here. They said they'd be pushing it out in January. The problem is this is an AT&T phone, so... My phone is up to date. Oh, rats. I hate it when that happens. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, MP3 players, home theater, and all that jazz. Actually, our digital photography guru, Chris Marquardt, joins us in half an hour. Talk about photography and give you a new assignment. Phone number, if you'd like to call in with a question, a comment, a suggestion, is 888-827-5536. That's 8888. Ask Leo. Love to hear from you if you've got something you want to talk about. 8888 Ask Leo. Our website, and the phone number is there as well as a link to the chat room and all the other resources, including questions and answers, audio and video from past show. Every show. That website is techguylabs.com, and don't worry, it's free, no subscription, no sign up. Keep your email address. I don't want it. techguylabs.com. Let's go to Camarillo next. Gary is on the line. Hi, Gary.
Hey, you're my last hope, Leo.
Uh-oh.
I have a question. I got a brand new Droid Turbo.
Yes, I have one too.
And I have a Verizon email on my home computer, and so I put Verizon email on my Turbo. And any mail I get on the Turbo, I delete it. It deletes it off my computer. So
I hate it when that happens.
So I don't know how to. I call everybody, and nobody has an answer. So
does Verizon do its own email, or do they do Yahoo or?
No, it's a regular email from Verizon.
It's Verizon.net or whatever.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, I tried it backwards. I tried to delete it off my computer, but it doesn't delete it off my phone.
Which is more what you'd like.
Yeah, but sometimes I delete things on my phone. I said, well, I can go home and get it off the computer, and it's gone.
It's 12 o'clock in your land.
Yeah, I know.
That's great.
Old clock.
Is that a grandfather clock?
Yeah, it was my grandmother's. It's like, 100 years old, yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I want that. I've always wanted a grandfather. I don't want yours. I'm not going to take your clock.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted a grandfather clock. I love that.
It's a mantle clock, yeah. Just one of those.
Or it's on a mantle. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's two kinds of email protocols. The one that we used for so long, post office protocol, and then there's the more modern one, which is called IMAP. IMAP is an interesting one because it's just the way it used to be when you went out to your internet service provider and got the mail, it would delete the mail on the server. And the idea was hard drives are expensive. The internet service provider doesn't want to store your email, so they're kind of a mail drop. You go there, you get the mail on your computer. Now they delete it so they don't have to waste their hard drive space. You've picked up your mail. It's just like going to the post office. Post office protocol. The post office doesn't keep a copy of your letters when you come to get it. It's gone. More modern, though, IMAP, in the age when hard drives are not so expensive, and more importantly, people are using multiple devices, we more often use IMAP. And the reason that is because multiple devices have a view into your mail store, and they all share the same view. So when you're logging onto an IMAP server with your computer, mail that you sent from the phone, for instance, shows up in the sent box. Messages you deleted from the phone are gone. And I'm guessing that's what's happening is you have an IMAP server. So any changes you make to your mail from any device should be echoed across all devices. Now, you said when I'm on the desktop and I delete something, it doesn't delete it on the phone?
No. And both, I try to, on the phone, I try to set it up the POP, and I try to set it IMAP. IMAP won't set it up on the phone. But
that's why. But you have IMAP probably on your computer.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm confused by the whole thing. I'm confused.
I thought maybe it's the phone that's doing it. I don't know.
Well,
because I had a Droid Razor M, and it didn't do that.
Yeah, it's definitely something in the way you've set up mail on that Droid Turbo. But I don't know. Make sure, just look through all the settings, make sure it doesn't say things like delete on server when you get the mail. That's how POP worked. If you unchecked the standard was to delete the mail once you got it, but you could uncheck it and it would leave it on the server. That would be one thing to look in your. Which email program are you using on the Droid?
The
one that came one or the Verizon one?
Yeah, it's got Verizon. Well, you go there and
yeah. This is why, by the way, I love the Droid Turbo, but I don't use it because Verizon. First of all, they junk it up with lots of Verizon software, and now Verizon also has this identifier that it sends every time you surf the net that says, "Oh, hey, it's Gary. He's back." And I find that annoying, and you can't turn it off. However, it is a great phone. I love it. It's got great battery life, like your Macs, and it has all the newest features. It'll get Lollipop soon if it hasn't already. I would say don't use the Verizon email program to start with. Use the email program. Maybe Verizon deleted it. There should be what we call a stock Google email program on there. The other thing that's possible that I tell everybody is don't use your internet service provider's email. You can have mail go there because you've probably given that address to everybody, but I would set up a Gmail account and use that as your email, and Gmail can go get the mail from Verizon, by the way. You could set it up to do that. And
I was thinking, well, if I change everything to Google, it might delete it on the Google account too.
No, it wouldn't.
Oh,
yeah, Google does a better job. I just don't know what Verizon's doing. That's the problem, and it sounds a little odd. So I would say one solution, probably, it's not the most immediate fix, but one solution would be to start using Gmail, have your Verizon mail forwarded there. That way, everybody who you get, who you've given that address to will still be able to get to you. Google Gmail has the best anti-spam system out there, and it's very customizable. It is kind of an IMAP server, but not exactly. It'll also work best with Android, and then you can get the Gmail client on your Android phone, on your Droid Turbo. The Gmail client is great.
If I have all my mail forward from Verizon to Gmail, and then it deletes it off.
It doesn't have to. Okay. Gmail, you can say, check that box that says don't delete.
I'd have to have Gmail on my cell phone too.
Well, this is the main reason to do it is so you can use
on my comment
on your computer. No, you would just change the settings on your computer to get the mail from Gmail, because Gmail's getting it from Verizon. And now you could start giving out a Gmail address if you want to, because that's going to work. That's one solution. And Gmail is just so widely supported, especially if you're in the Android world.
Yeah.
It just and by the way, they have a new program called Inbox. Google does, that uses Gmail. It's just another interface to Gmail that I find to be the most efficient way to process mail on a phone. It's fantastic. It uses swipes. I just love it. So all of that you get for free if you switch over to Google Mail. And some people say, well, I'm not going to use Google. They're spying on me. If you think Google spies more than Verizon, no. Verizon's the worst. Verizon's spying on you. Just do a Google search for Verizon Super Cookie. And you'll realize, oh, I already gave up privacy. I'm using a Verizon phone. I'm not sure. This is kind of a cop-out because I'm not sure exactly what's going on. My sense is that there's a setting that you could probably find in your Verizon mail program on your Droid Turbo that says, leave mail on server. That's what you want. You don't want it deleting the mail. Let's see. Larry in Mill Valley. You're next. Hi, Larry. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo. How are you today?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm packing for my move up to Petaluma next week.
You're kidding.
No, all the way from down here in chill Mill Valley.
Well, welcome to our little neck of the woods. That's where the Tech Guy Labs is. Come by and visit next time you're in the area.
I will do that as soon as the boxes are unpacked. The place I'm moving into is wired for Ethernet, and it's wired for cable. I'm a Comcast customer, unfortunately, but you know the story about that.
We don't has no choice.
My home theater system.
Hold on just a second. The magic sounder that says we have to do a commercial for Comcast is here. I don't know. We'll be back right after this. Stay here. I don't know. First, I want to mention that our show today brought to you, as always, by those good folks at FreshBooks. They changed my life back in, can it be now 2004? That's when I first started using FreshBooks for invoicing. I was flying up to Canada to do call for help, and it was such a pain to do those invoices. And Amber MacArthur told me about FreshBooks. They had just started at the time. She said, "Oh, you got to try this. This is the best way to do your invoices. Fast, easy, handles multiple currencies, sends out an email with a pay me button. Your clients can pay you faster. In fact, on average, FreshBooks users get paid 5 days faster. 5 days faster, and they double their revenue in the first 24 months. That may just mean that people who use FreshBooks are just smarter. FreshBooks is cloud accounting made for the non-accountant. It lets you use their smart apps, keep track of your hours, and put them right in the invoices. You can also take pictures of receipts for T&E. Is that what it is? T&E, yes. Time and expense or whatever it is. It is so easy to do, and I love it. I want you to try it free for 30 days. Right now, freshbooks.com/techguy. It works with your apps and services like Google Apps and PayPal and Stripe and MailChimp, Fundbox, Zen Payroll. Your accountant will love it come tax time because all the reports make it very easy for her to do your taxes. FreshBooks is awesome. Look what Melissa says. She's director of Ladies Learning Code. FreshBooks makes tax season stress-free by giving us the ability to send our accountant journal entries to do the heavy lifting. That's what I'm talking about. FreshBooks, they even have an open API so developers can integrate with the FreshBooks platform. And if you ever need help, you will talk to a real person every single time. From the FreshBooks offices, FreshBooks award-winning support is ready to help, and support is free forever. FreshBooks, free for 30 days right now. FreshBooks.com/techguy. Join the 5 million people running their businesses with ease at FreshBooks.com/techguy. We love you, FreshBooks. Thank you for helping me. Come visit us, Run on Caffeine. We have visitors in the studio today from Wisconsin via Palm Springs. That's Pete. Ken's from Dublin. And Clark's from Santa Rosa. So we got a few locals here. Pete's avoiding the 30-degree below zero weather in Wisconsin right now. God. Yes, Ewan sent me that. In fact, I'm going to go to that condolence book. I hope this isn't bringing back a lot of unhappiness for Eric's family. But I shall sign the condolence book, and we'll say something on Twit because I didn't want to say anything until I was sure it was him. But now I think we know because Ewan says he contacted him. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. We were talking to Larry down the road a piece in Mill Valley, California. He's about to make a big move. What can I do to help you?
Leo, I've got the place I'm moving into is wired for Ethernet, which is great, and it's also going to have cable. My issue is the location where my home theater system will be doesn't have an Ethernet jack near it. It has a cable jack. And the Ethernet cable and there's another cable jack on the other side of the room, opposite where I want to put my system.
Of course, it's not where you want it. Of course.
Exactly. So I'm wondering what the options are. I know about these power line adapters. I don't know yet whether those particular electrical outlets, are on the same circuit, which I understand you need for one of those to work.
Yeah, they call this power line networking. It's one good way to do it, although there may be others as well. Are you going to put Wi-Fi in?
Well, I will have Wi-Fi, but most of my components in my AV system are not Wi-Fi enabled, and I'm electrosensitive, so I don't like to keep my Wi-Fi on all the time. So I need if the AV power line network adapters won't work, and I'll find that out today when I go up there and start plugging in lamps and playing around. What are other options other than trying to install wire?
Power line's good. You renting, or can you get underneath the house?
I am renting, and I'm not sure yet whether I can get underneath there.
Because that's what I do. I'll actually just string more Ethernet and bring it up closer to the components. Failing that, though, power line's not bad. As you say, you can't go across a junction, but a small place isn't going to have, have multiple junction boxes. You have to have a fairly large area. I think it works quite well. now I haven't used it. I try to avoid it because I remember the early days of powerline networking where it was ridiculously slow and unusable and interference laden. But I'm told by many who use it these days that it's much, much better. I think it's PNA, the Powerline Networking Alliance. I think that's the name of the group. They certify these, and if it's PNA certified, it should work fine.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Do you have coax on, because that's another, somebody's mentioning Mocha, which is a great way to do it, and a lovely coffee beverage as well. But Mocha, M-O-C-A, is a way of sending data over the cable coax.
Now that would work because there is a cable in both locations. There's cable out throughout the house, and there's and then it's in the location where I want the TV.
That would be probably better. There's a lot more bandwidth, of course. There's less interference on the cable coax. I don't know what home Mocha setups there are.
Is that a device that you buy?
Yeah, it's just like Powerline Networking. It's got a device on each end that encodes and decodes data. I use Mocha. Comcast, our good friend, offers a system called X1, which is their new cable boxes. Has one DVR in the house and then little satellite units. They're all connected, obviously, to the coax, and they can talk to each other using Mocha. TiVo does as well. TiVo and the Romeo does that as well. So it depends what you want to get over to your component system. If you want all internet to get over there, then you'd need a dedicated, I presume, and I haven't ever tried this, dedicated device that would be on either ends. Do they sell home Mocha? Yeah, Action Tech sells an Ethernet. Action Tech, which makes the Verizon routers, sells an Ethernet to coax Mocha network adapter. It's $80.
Okay,
so that's another, and I would think that'd work better since you have coax in both places. There's a lot, the power line has a lot of stuff going down it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think this is a good option. I didn't know about this because both my receiver, my AV receiver, and I have an older Roku which has Ethernet, but they're not Wi-Fi, and I'd rather not run it Wi-Fi. It's much better to run it Ethernet.
They say up to 270 megabytes. Before you have a Comcast fella come to your house, I would disconnect it. Don't give them any excuse. Oh, yeah, it's this Mocha adapter. That's what's doing it. But it does not, they say it does not affect TV. It's been my experience it does not. The data rate is very, very good and pretty solid. So you're going to need one on each end, obviously.
Okay, so I'll need.
Yeah, in fact, Jeff Needles in our in-house guy says that they sell a twin pack over at Amazon for $119. So that's a good price, $120, $60 each. One on each end.
And that's Action Tech.
Action Tech. Hey, let me know how it works for you, especially if it.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll stop in person and bring you a sandwich and let you know.
Hey, I appreciate that. You don't have to bring a sandwich, but I would love to know how that worked. Sarah in Placentia, California. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Leo. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Well, thank you for calling.
You're so sweet. I'm a PhD student, and for part of my research, I have to conduct interviews and take down some oral histories, and I need a good recording device that records in uncompressed broadcast wave. And so I was wondering if my Moto G would work if I downloaded. Yeah,
if you look on the Android Play Store, there are a number of recording solutions that will let you use Wave. That's what you want.
Okay, and that would be comparable to like any of the good recorders that are out there today?
Well, you're using the phone's microphone, which isn't going to sound as bad as a phone call, but it's not going to sound as good as a standalone mic would. There are certainly great solutions that are designed to do this. Zoom makes a number of devices that are just little digital recorders that you hold up, and they have better quality mics. Some of these some of these devices have two mics, one facing in each direction, so that you can do an interview. It'd be great for an interview if you want to hear your audio. Something like the H5 from Zoom. Yeah, it's a handy recorder. They make video recorders too, which is kind of cool. But for audio, I think the Zoom is the reason I know this, a lot of podcasters use these. So if you're saying you need broadcast quality, this is going to be better than your phone. If you were just going to
Okay.
transcribe it, you know, you just wanted to take it for notes, like a reporter, then a phone's fine.
Okay, and then is there like a microphone I could buy or?
You don't need one with a Zoom because these have built-in microphones. You put an SD card in there, it records right to the SD card via the microphones. And it can...
Well, with the Moto G, is there a microphone?
Oh, yeah, they're external microphones, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there are external microphones. They're a little bit better. They're not expensive either. They're fairly cheap, and that would be a better way to do it, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
you're welcome. What's your doctorate going to be in?
It's in history of Christianity with an emphasis on women.
How interesting. And then are you interviewing people for your thesis?
Yes, I am.
How interesting. And so you need the audio. Are you going to make a video out of this or something?
Well, for the first part, I'm going to transcribe, but then one of my oral histories advisors told me that I should keep it in an uncompressed broadcast wave just in case, like, the future students want to listen to it or something like that.
I wouldn't worry
So
about
I didn't
that.
know.
Don't worry about that.
Okay. So
you're not going to if you're not making a documentary out of it, the phone will be fine even as is. Try it. Do an experiment and see. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I'll point to some, and we'll put this in the show notes. Apps. There are better recording apps than the Moto G comes with a recording app, but there are some better ones. Let me see. I've used a bunch of them, looking for the best. You can see there's a ton. Gosh, now I don't even remember which ones I've used. I like the icon on this one. It's the cassette. 10 hours record time, amplitude meter, but it records. The question is, does it record as a wave? Although, you know what, I disagree with your instructor. You do not want a wave. Those files are very, very big, and MP3 is fine. All your music is MP3. That's good enough quality. I think I've used this one, yeah. So you can set the sample rate. You could say, I want it to be CD quality. You can have it go out to Dropbox or Evernote, which is really nice. Evernote actually has a built-in recorder as well. This looks great. And I would try this before you do your interviews, obviously. Make sure that the quality's okay. And also to learn where to put the phone for best results. But if you're taking notes, it doesn't matter as long as you can understand the person. And I think as an archive, an MP3 is fine. You don't need broadcast quality audio. Not to diss your advisor or anything. You want to get the PhD, so whatever the person says is probably what you should do. But I think this, on a Moto G, something like Smart Voice Recorder would be just fine. And you can see this is one I have used, because it says installed. I'm trying to remember, I think it's free. Chris, in fact, this is how I met Chris Marquardt the first time. He interviewed me with
as a Nokia
phone. Wait a minute, I think I have it.
Oh, you still have that?
Yeah.
Woo! That's amazing. Yeah, I don't. Oh my God, it was something 93,
I'll never forget
90.
this was like at the first podcast expo, or where was it? Someone like that.
It was the second podcast expo, and you wanted to have the phone instead of having me interview.
I said,
you.
I don't care about the
that's
interview,
the
but
one.
give me this phone. What is this?
It wasn't out in the US just yet. Yep.
It's a Nokia, and it had this camera on it, which is hysterical. Was the quality okay?
The quality was okay. I edited everything on the phone. I uploaded it through Wi-Fi from the phone.
Optical zoom. It has optical zoom.
And it was before the time of the iPhone.
Dual LED flash. Yeah, it was S60 Symbian. Now I wonder. Unfortunately, Nokia used proprietary chargers, so I. Oh, look, it has an SD card slot. Wait a minute, there's an SD card in here. Holy moly!
That could be embarrassing.
What could this be? Oh, this is great.
Amazing.
Oh, I wonder what's in here. This is like finding a treasure trove.
Didn't it record in a weird format of some sort?
Oh, probably. It's a 1 gigabyte mini SD card. I should go through all my phones. Do we have an SD card reader in here? Is there one on this?
Amazing.
Put it in. Let's see. That's not an SD card? Some weird format? Is that what you meant? It's weird hardware? Yeah, it rotates.
No. I think the file format was weird. I was trying to get an intro, outro kind of video
It's not an
clip
SD
on there.
card?
And
It's
it
a
wouldn't-
mini SD, it says. Oh, that's an SD card.
That's an SD card, I think.
He says it won't work.
It slides right in here.
I'm putting this in.
It's too small.
I'm taking it home. I'm going to figure out how to read it. I have a
doesn't it have a
multi-
USB port? Can't you use just a USB cable and have it hook up to the computer as a disk?
No, it has this.
Oh.
It's some weird proprietary Nokia cable. And there's the power charger, which is about the size of a pinhead. But see, this would have been good for her. And see, it's got a little mirror so you can do selfies. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Chris Marquardt's our photo guy. He joins us each week to talk about digital photography. And we were just talking about how we met. Must have been almost 10 years ago.
It's about 10 years ago, yes.
And you were carrying around something that was not available yet in the States, which is this crazy Nokia camera phone.
N90 something.
N93i is the one I've got. And this was pre-iPhone. This was 2006, maybe 2005. So
It was very amazing technology back then.
because it looks like it's almost like a camcorder merged with a phone. That is wild. And it has 3x optical zoom.
And they did one thing that really helps the camera. They put it in sideways, so it doesn't have to compete with the depth of the phone.
Right.
So they can have a longer camera, longer lens, a bigger sensor.
It's a big old lens.
And with the thin phones these days, I sometimes wish they put the cameras in sideways in some way.
And it
looks very professional.
And an articulated LCD, so it really looks like a camcorder by the time you get it all set up. Anyway, that's how I met this guy, Chris Marquardt, and we've been buddies ever since. He does a lovely podcast about photography called Tips from the Top Floor. What do you want to talk about this week?
Well, it's a bit of a touchy subject. You know, sometimes you talk about something and everyone has their own opinion, and that's the same when you talk about how to clean a camera, what to clean in a camera. I'm talking about the outside of the camera. I'm talking about the inside of the camera, the lens. And every time I bring this up, everyone knows exactly how it's done right. But I just want to briefly touch a bit on this because it's really something that I get a lot of questions about. So,
you use the gentle cycle, right?
I use the what?
The delicates. You use the delicate cycle of your washing machine, right?
Oh, totally, absolutely.
I know that much.
Well, I'm pretty sure there are cameras out there that would survive that, but the ones I have
Not a good
apparently
idea.
don't do that. I never tried this. No, on the outside, I mean, pretty much what the camera manufacturer says, use a damp cloth, and that's pretty much it. And most of the time, I don't even do that because I just wipe it off with whatever I have.
The
outside
lens,
of the camera,
lens gets a little dusty. Do you use anything for that?
Well, the lens is the one part of the outside of the camera that I do not clean in this way. What I usually do is I use a microfiber cloth if I have one.
Yeah.
But I'm also, and you know, there are these two kinds of users: professional users who will just use the camera as a tool and they
bang it up
against things, and
yeah.
you would sometimes see me use a T-shirt, the sleeve of a T-shirt.
I've
or
done
something.
that. Yeah. Soft cotton.
So be careful that there's no little rocks wedged in there somewhere like that. But you know, but then there's other photographers who are like, really the camera is a very, very special thing for them, and they want to give it as much TLC as possible. So microfiber cloth is just fine for the lens. There are other tools like a lens brush and things.
A little blower. I have a little. It's an air blower. It's not like a canned air thing. It's just like a little bulb.
It's a little bulb thing.
Then you're not touching anything, right?
True, and those work really good if you have one with a very thin nozzle, so the air comes out really fast.
What about like a lens pen? I've also seen those.
I've tried them. They do work. They work just fine.
They're weird.
You can get the same result with a microfiber cloth. Yeah. And again, this is probably going to, please don't email me, right? This is going to stir up
You're
a lot
right.
of,
It's controversial. Yeah.
It's very controversial.
Isn't that funny? Now, you can use that same cloth or a different one to clean the outside, because I get dust in the little crevices, stuff like that. I just like to polish it up.
I don't really care about this kind of, the little crevices.
Little schmutzes.
The little schmutz, yeah.
What does schmutz mean in German?
Dirt. It's the German word for dirt.
It's a German word for dirt. Well, schmutz, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but now comes the really controversial thing, and that's the inside of your camera.
No,
like a DSLR, you take off the lens, and there is this mirror in there, and then behind the mirror there's a sensor, and that can have dust on it. So first of all, I'm talking about the sensor now, right? The inside of your camera, the mirror box, you can use one of those blowers as long as you don't touch anything. It's just fine to get some dust out.
I prefer to do that. Yeah.
Then the cameras have anti-dust systems, right? Most modern cameras have that. So
yeah, when I turn off my camera, it goes cleaning sensor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it does is in front of the sensor, it has a piece of glass that is coated so dust doesn't stick to it very well. And then there's a piezo thing on the side that shakes it really fast, like hypersonic speeds, and that shakes the dust off. And then most of these cameras have a little strip of adhesive somewhere in that box that then collects the dust. So that's one of the ways that the cameras get rid of that. But there's different kinds of dust. You know, there might be pollen in spring, for example, and pollen might stick to the sensor and it's hard to get off. So there are like electrostatic brushes and sensor swabs with fluids. That's the kind of thing that I typically will use. There are there's a whole industry around how to clean a sensor. If in doubt, bring it to a camera dealer. They will do that for you. But in general, the blower bulb is the first thing I use for the inside of the camera. And then if I really have to get something off the sensor, it's one of those swabs with a little drop of, it's usually alcohol. It's usually isopropanol.
I have to say, it can happen that you get a tiny little speck on the sensor, and it will be a dot on every image you take after that.
Yes. You know what I do? To a certain point, I just clone them out in Lightroom. And then, you have this dot in the sky always on the same at the same spot. Clone them out in Lightroom until it gets too much, and you go, I'd rather have it cleaned. If it's down on the lower part of the picture, where, for example, landscape is, that does not really matter because you won't see it. So the dust is not. Oh, there's one myth. Do we have time for one little myth I want to pop here?
Bust that myth.
If you change the lens, some people are religious, turning the camera upside down so the open side of the lens shows downward.
Dust doesn't go up.
Well, the thing is, dust hovers in the air. The dust is so small that it doesn't really matter. It's not like the dust all of a sudden decides to fall into your camera. It's not doing that. It's hovering in the air. And if you have a zoom lens, it pumps air in and out anyway. So the tiny little specks of dust are so small, they they will sooner or later get into your camera. So that's what the anti-dust system is for. And if you find dots that are too cumbersome, then go get it cleaned. I think that's the main recommendation.
Yeah, it's really scary on these new mirrorless cameras, like my Olympus OM-D or the Sony A7, because when you take the lens off, there's the sensor right there. It's like sticking out almost, and that makes me
it has
so
a bit
nervous.
of a protective glass in front of it.
Oh, it does.
Yes, it does. It's not the sensor. There's a whole pack of filters in front of it that kind of protects it from touching it. So I wouldn't still not touch it, because a fingerprint on that is gonna ruin your day.
Worst thing is you get this happened to me a couple of vacations ago. You get a clump on the sensor, you don't notice it, and then you go on vacation and come back, as I did, with 6,000 images, each with a black dot in the upper right-hand corner. I was going, what's that? Well,
do you know?
It drove me crazy.
Do you know modern software lets you fix that in one picture, like clone something, a neighboring pixel there, and then just copy that clone thing to all the other pictures.
Another reason to use Lightroom. Chris, what's our photo assignment this week?
Oh, the current assignment is climate.
Climate.
So we're still doing climate, and either next week or the week after next week.
I'm going to do climate. Yeah. Next week or the week after. So here's the deal. The way this works, we come up with a word, an idea, a concept. The whole point is to get you out there with your camera. It could be your camera phone. It could be your DSLR. Take a picture, upload it to Flickr, submit it to the Tech Guy group. Chris is going to pick 3, review the best. You'll get fame, fame and fame. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Fame, but nothing else. Oh, I did something bad, Chris. Hold on a sec.
What did you do?
Well, I've been getting frustrated by the lack of lenses for my A7. I just love my A7.
Oh, you
And then-
bought a new camera. Don't tell me you
No,
bought a new
I
camera.
didn't. But I have
Okay.
3 A7s. I have an A7R, an A7S, and an A7 II.
Okay.
But I am not regretting those purchases. In fact, I was just reading Steve Huff. Steve Huff Photo. It's a great blog, camera blog. He's an enthusiast. Not a great photographer, but he's an enthusiast. And he's been a Leica fanatic. I mean, and so I'm reading about the Leica K240, and I'm thinking I really would love or M240. I would love a Leica. $10,000. I can't do it. I can't bring. And the body's $7,000. The lens is $5,000. It's like I can't do this. But then I read on, and he's all over the A7. He says the best camera I've ever had, better than the Leicas. So he says, but what you want to do is use some Leica glass on the A7.
Actually true. Leica glass is legendary.
Yeah, but I still can't afford a $5,000 lens. So I'm reading on. I got the it's $300, the Leica adapter for the A7.
Oh, just the adapter?
Yeah, because then someday I'll have a lens. No, I got the adapter, and then I sprung on a relatively inexpensive Voigtlander. I know they're not as good as Leica glass, but it's the Leica mount.
Which one did you get?
I got the 35 f1.2.
Okay, I haven't tried that, but the
likes
Voigtlander lenses are actually quite good. Yeah,
He likes it a lot. I mean, he says it's not a Leica lens. I understand that. It's
also made in Germany.
Yeah, so I figure it's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
Well, and it's manual, but the A7 I'm getting used to manual focusing and everything. And this thing is f1.2. I don't have a really fast low lens for low light.
That is very fast.
I'm going to put that on the A7S. I looked at some of his images; they're amazing.
Yeah,
and he said this is a
cool
great
lens,
lens for this camera.
Well, and is it manual focus? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it has to be. That's the problem. All the Leicas have to be, because it's for a
You're
rangefinder.
finally coming around to the dark side. That's good.
So when it comes, and it should come this week, I'm getting it for the trip to Germany because I figure I should have a German lens in Germany.
That fits, yeah.
And I would love one of those Summicron lenses someday. I'm gonna, but the one I want is $5,000.
Yeah, I once on a workshop I had one of the HR people from Leica, and he said that was years ago when they were starting to go digital, and he said, well, digital is not really the strength of Leica, but they have the best optics people in the world, and that's actually true. They have optics; they are amazingly good optics. But the secret. It's not going to make you a better photographer.
Yes, it will. It will. I'm going to be so much better. I'm going to be so much better when I get this new. So now that I have the adapter, I'll play with the Voigtlander for a while.
Well, getting into manual focusing and a prime lens, that's a good thing to do. That'll get you in
I still have the excellent
right
Zeiss 1.8-55 for the Sony is wonderful. Still have that. I have 3 bodies. Lisa's going to use. We're going to switch off. But I wanted a creamy. It's got the kind of this creamy feel and smooth bokeh, and it's really interesting. So I wanted to use this for kind of some nudes and stuff. So it'll be dark because
1.2, lots of light.
On the A7S with a lens like that, I should be able to shoot with a single candle. I should be able to shoot amazing stuff.
You should be, yeah. Crank up the ISO and shoot at 1.2, and then everything's going to be out of focus. Apart from a very thin sliver.
No, I have a 1.2. I have on my 5D. I have a 1.2. I know. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Chris.
Talk to you again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye. Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, such a great guy. You can find out more about his workshops. Take a look at some of his photography. He's a brilliant photographer, doing the best work of his life, in my opinion, up at Everest. And he just came back from another trip. Where was it? Was it Iceland? Gorgeous stuff. You'll find it at discoverthetopfloor.com. 8888 Ask Leo. That's my number. Our website, techguylabs.com. Ted is next. Columbus, Ohio. Hi, Ted.
Hey, Leo. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Longtime fan. Love Twit.
Thank you.
And, I have a Mac, so no virus issues here. But I have AirPlay currently, and I heard it compresses my sound. And I'm a musician. I love music. and I want to hear Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, Daft Punk in my ear.
Yeah.
I want Miles Davis playing in the room.
Yeah, I want him in my ear, baby. Yeah, I don't use AirPlay. Anything, Sonos, anything that's sending it wirelessly is going to recompress it because, well, they just are. They're trying to get no buffering, sync, all of that stuff. So it's always best to play it not through the air, if you ask me.
Sure.
Now, here's what I do. It sounds like you have a nice stereo.
Yeah, I have B&W speakers, and then I have my iMac, just like a newer iMac.
Hooked up to
it.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, yeah. So
here's what I do. Those are great speakers, and they're underperforming hooked up to your computer.
Yeah.
Because your computer audio, the audio coming out of that mini jack of the computer, not much better than AirPlay.
Sure.
So the key on all of this is a little known part that is the critical component. It's called a DAC, a digital to analog converter. Your music's stored digitally, probably, right? It's on the hard drive.
Yeah, and I'm looking at like HD tracks and 90.
I would do that. I would at the very least do uncompressed music. You know, you take a CD and compress and rip it using Apple's lossless or FLAC, the uncompressed formats. Hard drive space is plentiful now. There's a lot of debate over whether you can get better than CD quality. Actually, you'd be a good person to talk with about that. But there's no question that a CD quality uncompressed is better than any compression format, MP3, AAC, I don't care what you do. So start there. Be playing back CDs or ripped CDs using a lossless, and there are two, Apple lossless and FLAC, that are very common. I would use FLAC. Apple isn't going to play it back. I'm going to help you with that in a second. But it's a standard that goes beyond Apple, and you don't want to be stuck in the Apple universe, really, even though you use a Mac. So I would use FLAC when you rip your CDs, and that way you'll get at least the same quality as the CD has on that hard drive. Then you need a good digital to analog converter. If you do plan to go with high-res tracks, that is better than CD quality, and I see no reason not to, except that they're slightly more expensive and larger file sizes. Then you're going to need a DAC that can handle that. So you can either get an external USB converter that plugs into your Mac, and then your stereo or your speakers plug into that, because those external ones are their own digital analog converters, better than the motherboard converter on the Mac or any computer. And they'll handle 92 kilobit or even 192 kilobit sample rates, higher sample rates.
Yeah.
I'm using...
One was the Audio Engine D1. It's like $170.
Yeah, I use Audio Engine speakers. I love them. That's great. That's expensive. I mean, the good DACs are in hundreds of dollars, yes. FIO is another good company. They make DACs.
Okay.
You may also investigate an amp. My Onkyo, for instance, has very good Texas Instrument digital to analog converters that can handle high-res files. So the way I listen on my home stereo is I take those files off the hard drive, put them on a USB key, plug the USB key into the front of my Onkyo receiver. It converts the digital FLAC, it reads FLAC, and plays it through the stereo. And that gives me very good results, in my opinion. But now, and since you're a musician, you're a good person to talk to about this. Because the trend, Neil Young kind of got this conversation going with his Pono player, which is just now on the market, by the way. It's a $400 iPod-like device. But unlike the iPod, it can play higher resolution music back. When musicians record in the recording studio, they record at higher than CD quality. They'll use, instead of 16-bit samples, they'll probably use 24-bit samples. And the sample rate is often higher. Instead of 44,100 times a second, they might do 96,000 or 109. They'll do faster sample rates. Now, in theory, in mathematical theory, the Nyquist theorem tells us it shouldn't sound better. But you're a musician. You have sat in the middle of a band. This is what we're trying to duplicate. See, very few of us have that luxury. Musicians, Scott Wilkinson, our home theater guy, says, I don't really listen to recorded music because it pales next to a band. And that's what you're trying to duplicate at home, right? You want to be sitting, you want to sit in with Miles Davis. You want his trumpet right there.
That would be great. You know, I recorded an album at 96K 24-bit.
I think that's as good as you need to be, by the way.
Yeah.
In fact, I once asked Joe Walsh of the Eagles, when he records, he says, I do 44-124. Because he says the file size gets so big, I don't want to deal with them. But he thinks a 24-bit sample is worth doing. The point is, we don't know where you're overdoing it. We don't know where you're saving too much data. It may be that 44-116, the format for CDs, is enough to give you 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz perfectly. But I am not completely convinced by the Nyquist theorem that there aren't harmonic overtones and other things happening that don't get captured in a slower sample rate. I think there could be more in there. Maybe it's voodoo, maybe it's airy-fairy, maybe I'm nuts. And a lot of people think I am for saying this. But my goal, and obviously yours too, or you wouldn't have B&W speakers because they're very expensive. My goal is to try to feel like I'm in the middle of the orchestra or the middle of the band listening to the live instruments. And if it means paying $5 more for a CD and having a little bit more headroom, more data recorded, even if that doesn't, much of it isn't used, if it makes that a little bit of a difference, that's worth it for me. It's not that expensive. It's $18 for a CD instead of $12. Big deal.
Yeah, and then you said using receivers conversion.
Well, receivers have DACs too, and Onkyo happens to use a DAC from Texas Instruments that's very good and does high-res music. You know, you're going to, now this is a rabbit hole, but since you care, you got good speakers. Since you care, start doing some research on digital to analog converters, because if you go to the audiophile sites, there's heated debates over who makes the best, which one's the best, because they have a lot to do with it. They're the ones that are taking the bits and turning them into waves, which is what you're
And that's better than the iMac pause link out?
The iMac can't do high res, for one thing.
Okay.
You can go into the MIDI setup on your Macintosh and turn up the bit rate a little bit, but not all the way. And then you can use a better DAC. And then it will bypass and it'll do higher res. But the Mac by itself cannot do a full high res. And iTunes will refuse to play it. That's another thing. So fortunately, there are many other good choices for players. J River makes a number of them. I use one that's available in the Mac App Store called Vox, V-O-X, that's designed to play back high-res files.
All right. Well, thanks, Leo. I want to say hello to my wife in Luxembourg. Hi, honey. I love you. I miss you, and see you soon.
What's she doing in Luxembourg?
She's visiting family.
Oh, well, that's nice of you to... You must miss her, though. That's hard, I know. What's her name?
Jessica.
Jessica. Ted's waiting for you to come home. What kind of music do you play?
Leo.
What kind of music do you play?
Oh, I play everything. Like I said, Daft Punk, the Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra.
No, but you, as a musician, what do you play?
Oh, as a musician, I'm a drummer, and I love playing Latin music and jazz and rock.
Love it. Yeah. I was watching the movie Chef the other night. There's some wonderful Latin music in there. Great percussion, congas and stuff. Hey, thanks for the call.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, bye, Leo. Take
care. It's a hot topic right now. I just read a review of the Pono player now that it's available. And I'm not sure I'd recommend you spend $400 on it. I don't know if that's really the right way to go. But the review just said, you know, math tells us that this is all voodoo. And I understand the Nyquist theorem says you don't need all those extra bits, but golly, what if you do? It's a great debate. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I agree. DJ Inc. says we need a musician's tech podcast, and people have been asking us to do this for at least 10 years. And I would love to find the right people to do it. I have to convince my business partner that we should do more shows. And that's not easy. There are arguments for and against, but it's expensive to do more shows. And we haven't had much luck. The Onkyo receiver I use, and I'm very happy with, is the NR, I think 616. Let me look it up. TX NR 616. They have more recent ones, obviously. It's 7.2, so you can have A 7.2 system, drive a 7.2 system with it. It's not expensive. Actually, they have more modern ones. Let's go to the 636. This is more modern. $454. They use excellent digital analog converters. It is a surround sound system. It has a lot of features that are great. I don't use, you can play back Pandora with it. I don't do that. But these are inexpensive and I think fairly good amps, receivers, and they'll handle your home theater system. So I use these. This is in my den. This is the one, well, I use the older version, but this is the one I use with the Samsung OLED and a 5.1 system with, I think that one has the Aperions. I like, these are American-made speakers. I'm not I didn't want to spend a huge amount of money on speakers, and my ears aren't that good. I'm very happy with these speakers. I think they're quite good. The other ones that I use in the living room, which I like a lot too, are the Emotivas. Both of these are U.S. companies that make these. Emotiva has a lot of hardware too. They do amps and probably better receivers than Onkyo because it's kind of more of an audiophile. But they're pricier. Yeah, this is a pretty good amplifier. So I've had very good results with those. And, I'm too old, almost 60, so my ears are never going to be able to. Yeah, I'd love to have a turntable with tube amps with Macintosh. I have a friend who has a turntable and a Macintosh. Beautiful system. It's his dad's system. He's the guy with the Klipschorns. I can't tell the difference. But I love listening to music. And what I'm really trying to create is the live music experience, especially with symphonic, with classical music. I do like these headphones, and they're a little less expensive than a surround system, but they're only left-right. They're the Hitman. Not Hitman. What do they call? Hi-Fi Man. Is that it? Hi-Fi Man? Yeah. The Hi-Fi Man magnetic planar headphones. These are the ones I have, the 560s. They're about almost $1,000, $800 or $900. They're super comfortable, and the audio on these is fantastic, and it's a lot cheaper than getting. So I plug these into the Onkyo as well, and then I can rock out. So those are very nice and a little less expensive. But he said did he say he had Bowers & Wilkins or B&O? I might have misheard him. If I had the money, I would go, and Sarah Lane went with these. I would go with the B&Ws. It's a British speaker manufacturer. These 800, and I think it was Scott who told me about these, the Diamond series. I've heard these at the Lucas Ranch. Lucas Ranch uses these for their they have a giant symphonic recording studio. And I've sat in the symphony. This was an amazing experience. And Scott was with me. They were recording the music for the game Uncharted 2. So they had a full symphony, actually bigger than normal. And I've sat in the symphony, and then I went into the control room and listened to playback on these. Unbelievable. Yeah, they do use Burr Browns. Those are made by TI. The Burr Brown DACs are owned by TI. I don't think MQA. Is that the one Scott talks about? I can't imagine that taking off. Yeah, so the Onkyos use Burr Brown, which are very good DACs. And you'll read about them on the audio file websites and all of that stuff. But they're made by TI. I think they bought Burr Brown.
Doesn't a motorcycle go on land, Robert Bigelow? It was heavenly. West Marin, if you've never been there. Back of a motorcycle.
Sweet.
Late afternoon.
Deadly.
Hot guy. Black leather.
No, I want Seattle to lose.
Oh, yeah.
I hate those Seahawks.
These are two of our nemesis, but they out-nemesis the other nemesis.
I kind of like Aaron Rodgers. Actually, I like Russell Wilson, too. So, you know what? I have deep respect for the Seahawks. They're an amazing team. Did you see last week? I think it was a punt attempt. It was either a field goal or punt attempt. It was a kick attempt. I've never seen a team do this. They get a guy, he starts back, and he starts running towards the line and leaps over the line to block the kick. And he did it, blocked the kick, but then it was offsides because the problem is timing so that you leap at the right time because it takes a few seconds for you to get up to speed. So he's like 10, 15 feet back, and he's running, and then he leaps over, he jumps over the line. I've never seen that happen.
Bizarre.
I thought it was illegal. I've never seen that happen.
Did he like run up one of the guy's backs to get him some more leaping
Must
power?
have. I don't know how he does it because he gets in the air.
Oh, that's weird.
And he blocked it, but because the timing is hard, it was incredible. Packers are winning 16-0. It is legal. I guess it's legal. There was no penalty there. The penalty was that he crossed the line of scrimmage prematurely. So you can't climb on another player, so he has to actually jump over them. Wow. Isn't it funny you can watch football your whole life and then see something, it's same with baseball. Baseball even more so. See something you've just never seen. It's like, what? No, I was talking about last week with the Seahawks. I've never seen anything like that. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk about, well, all sorts of things. Anything with a chip in it. Digital photography, computers, the internet, home theater, smartphones. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the number, 888-827-5536. Our website, where everything I say, you don't have to remember anything or write. I know people sit there with jotting stuff down. You don't have to. We do it for you. We jot it down just as you would and put it on the website, techguylabs.com. And it's free. It's open. It's no sign up. And the show is there. Actually, after we're done with the show, a few hours later, we put audio and video from it up. So you can go right to the question, listen to the question, my answer, and comment. And I hope you'll do that because the comments add to it. Always free, always easy. TechGuyLabs.com. Lauren in Aliso Viejo, California is next. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I just called to tell you thank you. I called in, talked to you about a week ago. I had a laptop that had the green bars going through.
Yeah. What was it?
Okay. Well, you mentioned that we had trouble when we rebooted the computer, restored it back to factory.
Yeah.
And every time I would turn it on, it would have all these updates to do. And every time I shut it down,
right,
it would hold off. It would configure.
Right.
So anyhow, you told me just go through all the updates, just keep doing it. It took about a week to get through.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. The green lines disappeared. And then after we did all the updates, I couldn't even tell you how many hundreds of updates we had to do.
Yeah.
Then HP Assistant came on, and it did all of a sudden automatically it did like a health check on the computer.
Yeah.
And so it went through all of that stuff for a couple days, and it runs perfect. It's like brand new.
Oh, thank goodness.
Super fast.
Yeah.
Everything worked out fine.
So from now on, that was because you started over, but from now on, you always keep those updates on. They're very important. And
which I wasn't doing.
Yeah, so you need to do that because otherwise you're vulnerable. As I mentioned last week, you're vulnerable when you don't update. So good. I'm so glad. Oh.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of
glad it
patience.
was.
You have a lot of patience, Lauren. A week.
A week.
A week. Wow.
Yeah, beats buying a new computer, right?
Oh, yeah, and I'm glad it's working well. And HP, like a lot of companies, has its own updater, as you see. That's a good thing to make sure that does the updates, too, because the reason they do that now is there's other software they put on the system, and they want to make sure that's as updated as the Windows system is and in as timely a fashion. That's very important nowadays. Anything that runs when you're on the Internet can potentially be a vector for attack by the bad guys. It has to be kept up to date.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm so glad that you called back. I like to get the feedback. Well, when I'm right. If I'm wrong, don't call me, okay? I don't want to know. Thank you, Lauren. Jonathan, Los Angeles, Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, Leo, love the show.
Thank you.
What I'm looking at is I'm looking for a backup system for my devices at my house. I'd like it to connect to my router so that I can, back up my movies and, music and stuff.
Right.
So what I also want is to be able to access this backup system as like a media player. So I can play. So I'm just wondering what's out there, what makes sense for me.
Sure. What you're talking about is something called network attached storage. It is a computer, but it's a computer without a keyboard, mouse, monitor. It's just a box that hooks into your router and is visible throughout the network as a drive. That means that the network can back up to that box. In fact, many network-attached storages, sometimes we call them NASs, N-A-S's. Many of these have their own backup software that just runs on the NAS and goes out and says, let me back up this system and this system and this system. They're often very large, so you can store all your movies on it, and it will become a media jukebox as well because, again, it's on the network and it's visible to every device on the network. Many NASs, I love that word, NASs. Many NASs will run servers like Windows Media Server or the iTunes server from Apple, and that way they show up on your Apple TV or your home theater PC. They show up as an available server with music, photos, and video. Makes it very easy to do all this. So there are a number of companies that make NASs. We talk about Synology a lot, and there are basically you're buying an enclosure and then putting drives in the enclosure. And the enclosure is as a computer. It has software. It has it updates, just like a computer does. Different enclosures will hold different numbers of drives, 2, 3, 4, or 5, typically in the home. I'm looking at one now, the DS414 Slim, which has 6 drives in it. Now, if you think about it, if each of those is a terabyte drive, some of that's reserved for redundancy, but that means you're going to have 4 terabytes of storage on this box. You should know anything with a lot of drives is going to be noisy. It's going to have a fan of its own, and each drive makes a lot of noise. So you want to store these in a closet or somewhere away from your media room. They have Ethernet on the back, so you can plug them in. A lot of these will have the software they're running is Linux usually, and they'll have all sorts of plug-in features for it. Another good company, Netgear, makes the ReadyNAS, and I use these at home. I have both Synologies and ReadyNASs, but ReadyNAS is very good. Same idea. It's an enclosure that has software running on it. It's a computer, and it has drives in it. And these are excellent choices for what you described.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yep.
So is it going to have software where I can access it maybe from a tablet and be able to play a random song list and things like that?
Sure. So, for instance, let's say you have an iPad.
Okay.
It will show up as an AirPlay device. Like I said, the software that's running on the network attached storage device will determine what you can do with it, and it will be visible on the network, almost as if it's a Mac turned on. It'll be running the software server.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. This is a very geeky kind of thing, but people still do it. I think we're moving away from it because more and more people just store stuff in the cloud, which is like a NAS, except it's out there somewhere on the internet. And with cloud storage getting so inexpensive, Microsoft now, if you have a Microsoft Office subscription, gives you unlimited storage in the cloud on their OneDrive solution. So a lot of people do that, but it's not practical if you want to put movies on it and so forth. It's much more practical to have it in the house. But it can add up. And you buy the enclosure, it's several $100, and then you have to populate it with drives, and it can add up. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the number. Steve, San Antonio, Texas. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how are you doing, Leo?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking my call from down here in San Antonio, where we fondly consider you as the techie taco tech guy.
Tex-Mex, man, I love it.
Let me tell you, I see that shirt. It goes along with it.
I'm wearing kind of a crazy shirt, yeah. This comes from my old TV days. I used to wear this on the screensavers.
Well, we go back further than that. I go back with you. Remember that video you showed yesterday on the internet?
Yeah.
I
remember that one, huh?
Yes, sir. I'm a little older than you.
I remember when the internet was new.
Right, but it was before you made the predictions for the for the internet. Yeah. And you were right. We changed. It's come along so long. It's getting complicated for everybody.
Changed the world. Both good and bad.
I don't have really any problem, but just your opinion on a couple of things.
Sure.
I purchased the Asus ZenWatch.
Yes.
And I love it. Before I purchased it, I couldn't find anything on it except for the reviews and stuff to it when it first came out. Nobody had anything.
We got to take a break. I would like to talk about smartwatches, so hang in there, okay? Because this is going to be a hot topic this year. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. This is I think Asus has made a nice watch. And it's interesting because that's one of the only things that you can do as a manufacturer of an Android Wear watch is change the hardware. Because Google has a pretty tight grip on what the software will do. This I really love. This is on again, all the software is common to all. You could do any of this on any watch. We were wandering in London. You get directions on your phone, and then the watch vibrates when it's time to turn and shows you the screen says turn right. And so it's really easy to wander a city that you don't know using your smartphone for directions and your Android Wear watch to remind you, turn here. It's really good. I'm quite fond of the Moto 360. That's the one I wear. 16-0. Aaron Rodgers, you are. Oh, I shouldn't say a score. I'm sorry. I didn't say who is winning or what Aaron Rodgers is. So I guess that's not a spoiler yet. If I'd finished the sentence.
Someone's crushing someone.
Someone's crushing someone. Why do they wear some?
That is interesting. Is that reflective?
I don't know.
It just doesn't look like it on
No,
TV.
a lot of the athletes now are wearing I think it's more athlete voodoo.
Yeah, luck stuff.
They wear like tape. He's wearing tape down laterally going down the arm, but I've seen him also wear it spirally going down the arm. It's usually linemen.
What was that rope necklace that all the baseball players
Yeah,
used
they
to
still
wear?
do that. It's
Do they
magnetic.
really?
Yeah, it's got magnets in it.
God, ugh, makes me crazy.
Yeah, I think it's. You think some creamy corncob says they just want attention. No, I'm sure there's some therapeutic intent for it.
But also being the first on a certain therapeutic trend.
Well, you gotta feel for these guys. I mean, this is a brutal sport.
I love that movie, Any Given Sunday.
Me too. My favorite football movie, Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington. That was a good movie. It's high school football now. Nathan Staten, our wonderful musical director, making it fun. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. That's the phone number. And we were talking with Steve. He's in San Antonio. Got himself a smartwatch, the Asus ZenWatch, which is one of a number of Android Wear-based watches, right?
Right.
What do you think?
I love it. I know you're fond of the 360.
That's only because it's round.
Right. Well, because I didn't get any kind of reviews that I could really use, and I did all the searching that I could possibly do. So I just went out and looked at them, compared them. It's comparable to the 360. With
this is the important thing to know is that Android Wear, which is a Google operating system, is very tightly controlled by Google. So the differentiation in the watches is almost entirely in the physical hardware, the band, and so forth. And ASUS does a very nice job. They have a lovely leather band. And, I mean, I think they do have some of their own software, right?
Right. And I think they've recently done an update, because when I've got it, it did an update where, before you would turn the watch and it would come on bright and it would just, stay there and it'd run your battery down. But this is very hard. You have to really kind of jerk your arm around to have it.
Yeah, I don't like that either. That's called ambient mode. And, I like to keep it. I like to run my battery down. It's not going to ever be as good as a physical wristwatch because they do have to dim when they're you're not looking at them. But I do want it to respond. I agree with you. Some of these, like even with the Moto 360, sometimes it doesn't know I'm looking at it.
But you know what they've added to it, though? You can adjust the time length of the brightness of the watch.
Yes.
And that I notice if I set it at 7. For 7 seconds, I can turn my wrist and it will come up.
And that's actually an Android Wear feature in the new version, the Lollipop version of Android Wear. And they've also added weather forecasts. There's some other features. I think these are getting better and better. It's interesting because when these smartwatches first came out, chiefly from Sony and Samsung, it was pretty obvious that nobody really understood what people wanted, how they were going to work. What the Pebble, let's not forget the Pebble. That was probably the first one many of us used. But everybody was waiting to see what Apple did. And Apple still hasn't released their Apple Watch, although we're only a few months off now. But what's interesting is Apple took so long that in the 2 years between the rumors of the Apple Watch and the release of the Apple Watch, these Android guys have come along pretty far, and they've got a lot of experience on what people want and how to make it work. And I think Android Wear is pretty darn good. I think Apple's going to have a bit of a challenge. It's not going to just come in and clobber the marketplace. These Android Wear watches are great.
Hey, what I think too is, from what I understand, is that they will also update and change features as the technology gets better.
It's just like your smartphone. They update them.
Right. And
now, Android Wear is relatively inexpensive. How much did you pay for the Zen watch?
I paid $199.
And we know that the cheapest Apple Watch, it's the only price that Apple has announced, is $350. And the gold one, the edition version, we expect to be in the thousands.
Yeah.
For a consumer electronic device that's going to be outmoded in a year, that seems like an awful lot of money to pay.
Right.
So I think Android Wear has a lot of legs to it, or a lot of risks to it. It is. If you're thinking that maybe you'd like a smartwatch, I think they're very good choices. I like the ASUS. I use the Moto 360, the LG Gear R. A lot of people like that. It's also round. Samsung and other companies also make them. And Android Wear is a standard, I think, that has evolved very nicely. What do you get? Well, there are two things that any smartwatch can do. One's health monitoring. At the very least, they're a pedometer, but some of them can read heart rates, blood pressure, things like that. And then the other thing they do is they act as a adjunct to your smartphone, putting notifications from your phone on the watch. So when your phone's in your pocket or your purse and it rings, your watch will say who's calling. You still have to get your phone out to answer it. Text messages will come in on the watch. You can even respond to them in some cases, things like that. So
that's why I got it, for the heart rate and also for the ped. And you can boot your phone. If your phone's in your pocket and it's ringing, you can put your hand over the watch and it'll boot the phone and send it to a text message.
I agree. There's some very, very nice things on Android Wear.
One thing I found out, too, that the thing that I did find that was negative that they talked about was the docking being stuck to the back of the watch. But when I first put this on, I took it out and I put the docking station on the back of it. And I wasn't thinking, I put it on my wrist. It doesn't look half bad when you have the docking on the back of it.
It's just a little bulky. Yeah,
a little bulky, but it makes a little different style to it. But I think it's fantastic. And like I say, with the Moto 360, I think they're pretty much comparable to the same. It just depends on.
They've done the 360. One of the reasons I like the 360 is that the dock is, this is the only one I know of that's wireless. It doesn't have the pogo pins on the back that have to connect to a special dock. This just sits in a dock that you put on your bedside table. It goes into a sleep mode that is actually a night clock. There's no connection that has to be made. It's wireless charging. So that's another reason why I think the 360 is a good choice. But, I feel like you should choose it based on that kind of thing, the hardware, because the software is pretty much the same across the board on Android Wear. I will absolutely get an Apple Watch. It's my job. Sometimes I'm glad that's my job. I have to buy all the latest, greatest stuff. Sometimes I hate it because I don't want to buy anything new. I certainly won't spend $5,000 on an Apple Watch, but I will be wearing one. And, like Android Wear, the Apple Watch requires an iPhone. Android Wear requires an Android device. So that will also determine what people get. If you're using an iPhone, it's the Pebble. Pebble does work with iPhones, or the Apple Watch when it comes out.
May I change the subject? Ask you one quick question?
Sure.
I have Windows 8.1, and I have been, since I've had it, I'm a Windows 7 lover, and since I've had it, I've been using Classic Shell. And now when Windows 10 comes out, there is not really any reason, unless you really want to get Windows 10, is it?
Okay, that's a good question. Is Windows 10 going to be much better than Windows 8? We don't know yet. We'll find out a little more Wednesday. Usually when Microsoft does an update, they do improve some of the internals. The UI is going to be different. There are a lot of changes to the UI, but that's just cosmetics. So the question for me whether I should update Windows is, what about internals? And in fact, Windows 8.1 fixed a lot of things that have been broken on earlier versions of Windows, including Windows 7, things like the file copy. And so I think, it was more secure. It includes an antivirus, and that's a good thing. So I think there were reasons to go 8.1. I don't know yet if there'll be reasons to go to Windows 10, but I suspect Microsoft will find a way. It is a question of diminishing returns, isn't it? I think one of the reasons 8.1 and 8 were so unsuccessful is people were pretty happy with Windows 7. At some point, you say it's good enough. There's nothing I lack. There's nothing new I need. Happened with word processors about 8 versions ago. Microsoft had to add all sorts of crazy stuff to get people to buy the newest version of Microsoft Office, and many didn't. And I think the same thing's happening now with operating systems. They do everything well. What new feature are you going to put in an operating system that's going to make everybody say, oh, got to have that? It's like it's all cosmetics now. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, yeah. Look at this. Poor Jason Howell. Let me show everybody. Oh, this is what happens if you drop a Nexus 6 on a turkey sandwich. Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
That bread must have been really stale.
It hurts. It hurts. I can still hear the noise echoing through me. Oh.
So sorry. We were talking to Mike in Glendale. I think that's who we were talking to. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Leo. How you doing?
What can I do for you today?
Well, I just got a question or two on, because I hear you all the time talk about changing your passwords every so often, and one of my main question is, the first password that you use to go onto your computer?
Yeah.
Mine's a Mac, but
right.
The very first password, and mine's a very simple password.
That's fine.
Just leave that alone?
Don't change that.
Okay,
so let me talk a little bit about password hygiene.
Yeah.
That's a good topic. So there are passwords you use on the internet, and there's passwords you use locally. That Mac password or that Windows login, that's local. And unless you're maybe on a laptop, you should have a good one. I mean, in order for that password to matter, somebody would have to have physical access to your system. And even if the password is 8 characters long, they'd have to have a lot of time to try a lot of passwords. So that password isn't critical. There's no way that can be accessed remotely, really, if you're doing, if you have a firewall and a router and all that stuff. So that's probably not the password we're talking about. And frankly, there's some debate over how often you should change passwords. The only reason to change passwords is if there's reason to think a password might be compromised. So, if you enter your bank password at an ATM or you do it in your office all the time, maybe every few months change it just in case somebody saw it over your shoulders. But you don't have to change your Amazon password regularly because it's not going to get compromised. And the risk with changing it all the time is that you'll forget it or lose it. When what we find is that people who are required to change passwords a lot tend to use less secure passwords so they can remember them, or they write them on a Post-it note and put it on the screen. So that's the negative, unintended consequence of requiring password changes. In my opinion, as a normal user, not a business user, just somebody at home surfing the internet, you have a bank account that you want a strong password on, you have Amazon or other e-commerce sites, you don't need to change it regularly. Your email, maybe I would change that every year, only because if somebody does get your email password somehow or guess it somehow, they can continue to log into your email forever. And that's especially a problem if your email is where you send password recovery emails to. When you forget a password at Amazon, it says, "Did you forget your password? We'll send you an email." If it's sent to that email address and it's been compromised, whoa, now you got a problem. So your email is the most important password you have, and that one, it might be worth changing. The reason, the thing I would suggest that makes it okay to change passwords on a regular basis is using a password vault. Password vaults are encrypted storage. The one I use, LastPass, saves a copy, has a copy in the cloud that they can't read, by the way. It's encrypted with your password, and it's visible on all your devices. So I always have access to all my passwords. They're always stored safely in a way that only I can read them. I only have to remember that one password, the LastPass password, and everything else is accessible to me. LastPass allows two-factor authentication as well if you want to do that. You can make it really secure. The Dashlane is good too. There's quite a few of these. 1Password on the Mac, RoboForm on the Windows. There are quite a few password wallets, password keepers, password vaults, and everybody should be using one. That way you're less likely to say, "Oh, let me make monkey123 my password. At least I can remember it." You're also less likely to use the same password on multiple sites. That's another important hygiene tip. Do not reuse passwords. Because if you do and one site's compromised, the bad guy will try that same password in other places, and that's not what you want to have happen. Another thing that LastPass and Dashlane have started doing, which I love, is they make it easy to change passwords. So maybe you can change them on a more regular basis. They have a button that says change this password. It'll do it all for you, create a new password. It simplifies the process. And so then changing your passwords once in a while is not so onerous, not so hard, easy to keep track of them.
Yeah. One time I did change my Gmail password on my old computer because I had this weird error message on the front page of my Gmail that said someone else is using this account.
Yeah.
Down at the bottom, and I was like, what?
Pay attention to that. Google does a great job of that. They will, in fact, if you go to the bottom of your Gmail page, you can see which computers have access to your Gmail account. Which is really great.
Yeah, and it was easy to change the password, and it told you if it was strong or weak. By the way, can I change my email address myself?
Once you have an account with Google, you can't change the address. You'd have to create a new account.
Okay.
But here's a tip with Google. Anything after the plus sign is ignored. So your name at gmail.com, if you added your name plus Leo told me to do this at gmail.com, it's the same email address. Anything after the plus is ignored, which gives you multiple addresses. Here's where that may be useful. When you sign up for stuff, you might put Leo, or whatever you use for a Gmail address, plus New York Times account at gmail.com. Anything after that plus will be ignored. And you'll know, by the way, if somebody sells your email because they'll be selling that name.
Okay.
So that's a nice thing about Gmail. I love that. And technically, that should be available in all email programs. That's part of the spec, but Gmail is the only one I know that does it right. So anytime you see a plus, anytime you want to add something to your address, just use the regular address plus text at gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you. I love the show.
Great. I'm glad you asked, because passwords, we could talk all day. And it's such an important thing to secure your passwords, especially for your bank account, your e-commerce accounts, your email account. And if a company offers something they call two-factor authentication, use it. It's less convenient. There's always a trade-off between convenience and security, but it makes such a big difference in security. I think of Gmail as an example. Google absolutely supports two-factor authentication. And the way it works, there are a number of ways to do this. You can print out a piece of paper. There's all sorts of things, but it'll ask you for your password and then a second thing, a second factor. And in my case, what I do is there's an app called the Google Authenticator. I put that on my smartphone. I give it a secret. Google will give you then a secret key, which you enter. Usually it's just a QR code. And now my phone is generating a new 6-digit code every 30 seconds. And Google knows what that code is. So when I log in at Gmail, it then says, okay, what's the authentication code? I open my smartphone, I get the current code, the code that's current and good for 30 seconds only, enter those 6 digits in. That's even better than a password. Your bank probably offers that as well. If you can, in my case, I think I'm Bank of America, it will send a text to a phone number that's on record. So you can't, the bad guy can't just say, well, send it to my phone. It has to be to your phone. It'll send that text out. And then, so you'll log in. Then Bank of America or your bank will say, okay, what's the text we just sent you? Twitter does this too. You enter in those digits, and then you enter your password. That's two-factor authentication. That means even if somebody somehow got your password, they'd also have to get your smartphone. It makes it a little bit harder for the bad guy. And we've seen so many hacks. So many people had credentials stolen and stuff. And in almost every case, had they had two-factor authentication, it wouldn't have happened. 8888 Ask Leo. More to come. One more segment before we're done. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Yeah, the plus is, I don't know if it's in the spec, but you're right. It's other services will do it. I suspect it's in the spec. That anything after the plus should be ignored. And Postfix does it. But so many services which should do it don't, which is weird. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. Hope we're having fun today. I love talking about tech. I guess I have the right job. I mean, that's all I do. Talk about tech. I love it, though. I mean, here is, for a journalist, there's no better beat. It's always changing. It is important. It's like the toy store, but it's important. Changing our lives, how we work, how we play, how we communicate, how we worship, everything. Nobody dies. There's no bloodshed. If you've ever, you were a traffic reporter, you probably, the worst thing in the world is having to go out and cover a plane crash or something. It's just depressing.
Yeah, there's too much depressing news.
Depressing.
You do the fun stuff.
I do the fun stuff, but it's important. It's not like it's irrelevant. So I love it.
Every single one of us.
Couldn't be more fun. And I get to get great shiny new gadgets all the time. That's part of the fun. Let's go back to the phones. Last segment of the day. Oh my gosh, it went fast. Dave in Fullerton, California. You're next. Hi, Dave. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. What's up?
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I'm well.
Speaking of fun talking about tech, there's nothing more funnier than talking tech than CNBC, the financial network.
Oh, yeah? I don't get to see them because I'm working in the day. What do they do?
Well, they don't quite understand it, and then everything is to try to how they're going to capitalize.
Yeah, how are you going to make money on it? Yeah,
but they never understand how it actually works.
I love that.
They always get it wrong.
I don't mind that because it means more people listen to me.
Right. So you were talking about the Apple Watch, the iWatch or whatever, and the gold version earlier this hour. That would be several $1,000s. And I could hear in your voice you were probably wondering if there's going to be a market for such a thing.
Is there?
Well, trust me, there probably is.
Oh,
because several months ago, I was watching CNBC, and they were talking about the watch, and, of course, whether it's going to be a big financial winner for the company and if they're going to sell to the masses. And it was one of the pundits on the panel who was clearly negative on the whole thing. And he was very much against the idea. And they finally pressed him, why don't you like the idea of the Apple Watch? And he responded that, well, if everyone was going to be wearing a $350 watch, then what was the point of having an expensive watch? In other words, it devalued his status symbol.
You know who's most scared, and it's very apparent? The Swiss watchmakers, the very high-end Rolexes and Baumann Mercier, and even Swatch, the cheap Swiss watchmakers, are very worried that these smartwatches are going to put them out of business. In fact, they're all coming up with kind of analog digital hybrids to compete with it. But don't worry if you, there is, in fact, my friend Kevin Rose, who's a smart kid, he's an investor, a startup guy. He's created an app called Watchville that is very popular on Android and iOS, and all it is a bunch of watch blogs. Have you ever read the watch blogs? The people, now admittedly it's got to be a small group, but people who spend tens of thousands of dollars on wristwatches.
80 in case I had a client with an $80,000 Rolex.
You're wearing a car on your arm.
I disappointed the sales. Well, I used to work for CompuServe many years ago, and I disappointed our sales group one time when I discovered cheap Rolex watches from China.
Yeah, I
wore one to a meeting, and they could not take their eyes off it. And finally, one made a comment. I had to go out to Vegas. And one of them made a comment saying, yeah, he's got to go out to Vegas so he can win enough money for another Rolex.
It's a status symbol. That's what it is,
and
right?
It was a $20 knockoff on my arm.
I bought one of those in New York. But the only thing wrong with it is it's spelled Geneva with a J. Kind of a giveaway, but if you don't, you'd have to look really closely to know that. Yeah, the truth is a good, reliable watch is $10. I mean, now that we have, quartz and atomic time and all that, you can get a very accurate watch. So it's not about accuracy. It's not about time. It's jewelry.
Status.
It's jewelry. But the question a lot of people are asking is, in the smartphone era, how many young people wear watches anymore? Very few, because they've got the time in their pocket. So this is the question.
Almost outdated, and it's in bigger numbers.
I agree. So that's the question. Is there going to be a market for any kind of watch? But I think these Android Wear watches have shown that it is. It's not a necessity. Even an Android Wear watch is a luxury. You don't need one of these, but it can be convenient. And, of course, Apple's going to do both. It's going to make a product that's useful, but it's also going to make a product that's jewelry. And that crowd is willing $5,000 or $6,000. No big deal. It's cheap.
I love your point about the Android coming out first on this one.
Yeah, I feel like they surprised everybody.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think they've got the market share. And, as far as Android goes, and Apple, I tend to be a little bit down Apple. I love their engineering. Their hardware is the best in the world. I've never seen anything like it. But when it comes to the usability and the walled gardens and the locking you down,
I'm with you.
I ask people if they should buy. When they ask me if I should buy an Android or an Apple phone or etc., I say, "Well, do you like playing with tech? Are you interested in technology?" And if they answer anything but yes, then I say, get an Apple.
Yeah. No, that's exactly the question I ask. You and I are of like minds. Are you going to buy an Apple Watch, Dave?
I have no plans.
Here's my suggestion.
Right now,
I have to buy one. I have to review it. I'm probably not going to get the $350 model. I'll get the sport model, which is in between. We don't know how much that's going to be. I know I'm not getting a $5,000 or $6,000 gold watch, mostly because people would mock me if I did. But I will let you know if it's useful, if it's well designed, if it's effective. They're going to make those 3 models in big and small sizes. They have larger and smaller. I'm intrigued by the band technology. And this is the acknowledgement that it's jewelry. You can buy fancy bands, and they're very easy to snap on and snap off. So they expect, I think, people will have multiple bands, one for day, one for night, one for fancy, one for casual. This could be a big market for Apple. I think it will be just because it's Apple. Whether it'll be needed is another question.
I think where they're targeted and where Apple's always targeted. You got to admire Steve Jobs. He always I'm sorry, I'll say this. He targeted these, the less tech savvy.
Well, and people with disposable income.
There's more of them.
And people with disposable income, and that really has been Apple's key to success, is to not go after the low end market, but to go after the high-end market, to make a premium product at a premium price. The iPhone is significantly more expensive than any other phone on the market. A top-of-the-line iPhone 6 Plus is close to $1,000 for that phone, and it sells like hotcakes. They can't keep them in stock. And that's not because it's better, but because Apple has catered and found a great audience in people who are willing to spend more for something a little bit more elegant, and I think the watch fits that perfectly. I suspect they'll do very well, but hey, I'm not CNBC, so what do I know? Mick, or Mike, in Eastvale, California. Hi, Mike. Is it Mike or Mick?
Mike.
Mike. She left off the E.
Oh.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Leo?
I'm well.
Fan, screensavers, call for help, all that.
Thank you.
Hey, anyway, I create spreadsheets and Word documents where I put hyperlinks in, referring back to the data that I found.
Yeah.
But it always defaults to IE instead of Google Chrome, which I prefer to use.
Is Chrome your default browser?
Yes.
Okay. So it's on Windows, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Windows has a database called the File Association Database. It may be that Excel has a setting. I would look there first to see maybe Excel overrides the default browser. It should go to the default browser. And if Chrome's your default browser, it should open Chrome. I don't know why it doesn't. Either Excel's overriding it, or in the File Association Database, there are additional entries, and the file format that's the URL format that's coming from Excel is associated with Explorer. So that's probably the thing to do, is to find one of these URLs. That's a little tricky. You could do it easily. Well, go to the control panel, actually. That's probably the best way to do this. And look at the program handlers in the control panel and see. There may be more than one for URLs. You want to make sure they all say Chrome. If it's not in the Excel. I don't. The chat room, do you know if Excel has a setting for this? Could be that it's overriding. The reason I mention this File Association Database is it's possible to have a variety of different programs associated with URLs, depending on how the URL is formatted. So I would look in the control panel to see the default. Take a look at the default applications.
Okay, under system and security, or?
I don't know where it is. I'm going to have to punt on that.
Okay,
one.
I'll look.
Yeah, there will be somewhere it's like default programs. If it's an icon, you right-click on the icon, select properties, and you go right to it. But you want to look in the guts of it. What is this File Association Database? And there are multiple URL handlers. You want to make sure they all go to Chrome, because obviously one of them's going to Internet Explorer. It seems like it should simply look at what the default browser is. On Windows 7, it's just click the Start menu and type default, and you'll find default programs. That's the way to do it easily. Hey, that's it. We're out of time. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Heather. Thanks to you for joining us. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Have a great Geek Week. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. I'm Leo Laporte. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, the Tech Guy is just the tip of the iceberg. We do nearly 30 shows now on the Twit Netcast Network, and you'll find them all at twit.tv. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPad on iPad Today. You get your daily dose of tech news from Tech News Today, and our weekly roundtable show, This Week in Tech. It's all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next time with another great Tech Guy podcast. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.